So, Matt, I believe that you've played 50 plus consoles throughout your life, and I would like to ask you what you think of these 50 plus consoles, any and all game consoles, in fact. I have most video game consoles that have released sitting in front of us right here, and I just want to know what you're thinking of them, before we get all into this, I kind of want to hear your predictions. What do you think is going to be like top of the list? What do you think is going to be bottom of the pack? What are consoles that you've never played before? Let me get a good vibe of what you're feeling before this.
All right, top of the pack, R-Zone. R-Zone, that is a lock.
God
Innovative.
Damn it, I forgot it. I forgot the R-Zone.
No way. I didn't pre-look at, I didn't scan all the consoles. I wasn't looking for the one that was missing. I was just like, R-Zone, it's iconic. It defined a generation. But yeah, no, to be serious though, top is like Super Nintendo, PS2, I want to say Game Boy Advance is high up there, DS Lite. Bottom is actually like R-Zone. Have you ever actually played one? No, but I'd like to think that there's going to be some consoles where we can be very self-assured where they land. I own a Jaguar, and every time I boot up the Jaguar, I hate the Jaguar. A lot of that has to do with the controller, though. And then middle of the pack is like Xbox One is like got no identity to me. 360 is great. Xbox Series S and X, they're fine, they're solid. But Xbox One was like literally what defined you other than bad press, because that's all you really had going for you. So yeah, that's my general feeling thus far. What about you, Wozniak?
All right. Oh man. Okay. Well, I have played in R-Zone.
Sorry.
Well, I was very fortunate that it was kind of a freebie. I forget like what console I bought on eBay, but it just like the seller just threw an R-Zone in there for me. So I have tried it, and it wasn't good, but I don't really know what else there is to go. I mean, it's just you have an LCD game right in front of one of your eyes, and that's all it really is. And I don't know, we can rank it right now. I put it in, it goes in F. I mean, like R-Zone is in that weird. R-Zone is in that weird, like, hyper-scan territory where it's just like, does this really count? It does, but it's like, what are you doing here?
I have to give props to the marketing guys, like the Kavorka they had to be like, let's release this. Like, I admire that someone said, let's try this, versus a console that's a bit more safer or like, kind of like milquetoast, like the hyperscan. The hyperscan is like bad, but at the same time, it's like less weird than the R-Zone. So R-Zone gets props for being weird.
I think the R-Zone, it feels like they wanted to make the cheapest possible game console that looked slightly interesting. Like the concept, like you strap it on your head and then it's like in front of your eye, you look like a cyborg kind of thing while you're playing it. So I guess you kind of feel like a robot of some sort, I guess. That has something going on there.
Yeah.
So, like, I get, whatever. But, you say Xbox One is middle of the pack. I would agree. I mean, like, same generation, but I put Wii U middle of the pack as well. Because it's like, I don't know. Even, like, I mean, it might go into D territory. Like, I love that stupid-ass thing, but it's also, like, it is a stupid-ass thing.
Yeah, I was thinking, obviously, about, like, he's either going to put this on the very top as a joke, or he's going to put this at the very bottom for either a joke or for realsies, but it actually winds up in the middle.
I look back at that era, and I think it's so dumb, and it makes me feel like a little baby boy to say, like, I look back at that era with nostalgia, but, like, I don't know. I look back at, like, 3 years ago with nostalgia, like, man, wasn't that nice, or something. So, like, I don't know. Like, I look back at that era with a bit of, like, oh, how fun. Like, there were some good games, and you kind of felt like you were rooting for the underdog Nintendo. And even watching, like YouTube content about games back then, there was kind of this aura of, like, I don't know, like you were making the most out of like, like whatever games Nintendo had going on that year, like 6 games or something. Even like the best games Nintendo released on Wii U, there was this sense of like wrong place at the wrong time about them. Yeah. Like Mario 3D World is good, but it's also like that wasn't the 3D Mario people really wanted at the time. Donkey Kong Country was good, but again, like it came out when like there was too many 2D platformers. Bayonetta 2 was great, but it's, a pretty niche game, all things considered. So it's like, yeah, it's some good stuff on there, but like you were really stretching to be like, as a Nintendo fan, I heard like a lot of people say back in the day, like, damn, the Wii U is really hitting all the notes for me. There's so many games to play, and then they just listed off like the 6 games that released that year.
Yeah, the same 6, yeah.
And that was it, yeah. Yeah, where it's like people that own a PS4, like, everybody had a different answer for the games they were playing, but like,
The other thing I consider a lot, I'm not sure if you do, is that like, are its exclusives available somewhere else at the Wii U's time? Like, well, you can only play Bayonetta 2 on the Wii U, but now you can play it on the Switch, and you already have your Switch plugged in, so you can definitely play it there. Versus like the Dreamcast, where lots of games only on the Dreamcast. You can't you can go down the dark road of emulation, but if you actually want to play the authentic experience, it's only on the Dreamcast. So like I kind of view that nowadays as like a definite place, a definite element to where to rank certain consoles. Like, does this have experiences you can't get anywhere else? Or if they're not, are they still better here? Because some ports, not all is equal to others. The only thing with the Wii U I actually think is just straight up bad is just like how slow the OS is. Like,
oh, it is horrible. That thing is dog shit. I hate that stupid ass thing.
The R zone is more powerful in that sense.
And the R zone's faster, yeah. I agree with you. I think that definitely plays a part in it. But I will say, like, it's not like the whole kit and caboodle. No. It's something where it's like, yeah, like Wii U wise, what's the point of owning a Wii U now unless you're gonna hack it, or you want a Wii with HDMI like right out of the box kind of thing, or the few exclusives that it has left.
Devil's Third's always there.
That's
it.
Yeah,
though.
I mean, like, come on, that's funny. I mean, like, no other game console has something like Devil's Third.
That's true.
I'd say it hits C because good games. It has some good games. A lot of them are on Switch, but at the time of its release, it's kind of like, you have a stack of games that you will enjoy.
Good Virtual Console, too. Virtual Console is very solid on the Wii U.
Yeah, you had a lot of stuff going on there where, like, there was stuff to do with it, but man, it was a bit rough, so I think C. And I will agree with you. Xbox One, I think that goes right next to Wii U.
I agree.
You have the multiplats the Wii U really didn't have. You have like the third-party support. And even nowadays, like, the Xbox One is still like alive and kicking. You can still use it for all kinds of things, and games are still releasing on it. But at the same time, like you said, there's nothing to it. It's very much like the most generic white bread box you can get to play video games on. Like, nothing special. Just here you go. You can play your multiplats on here, a couple exclusives, but nothing really to write home about.
Yeah, or they're reported, or you can play them in different places. So if they had kept strong with Kinect, like if they just were really stubborn with it, at least you could say that's the Kinect console. At least you could say they had weird games all the way up. It died so quickly, Kinect, on the Xbox One. Like, even the 360 has better Kinect-only things like Rise to Nightmares or Diabolical Pitch. I'm not sure if those are backwards compatible on the Xbox One.
Oh, no.
I want to say
no. I don't think any Kinect games from 360 were made backwards compatible with Xbox One.
And it's got those dumb fighting games, too.
Fighters Uncaged, or whatever. Yeah. Oh, man. I don't even know if that's the right name.
To be fair, the sequel was an Xbox One thing. That was the really bad Fighters Unbound. Whatever, it doesn't matter. But
whatever. Just some bullshit. I don't care. I did look up, like, all the Xbox One Kinect games at some point, and I own a good chunk of them outside of like all the Just Dances, because like that's all the same.
Of course.
There's only like 5 or something, and for them to go that hard, even like games with Kinect support, like Tomb Raider's on there, like Battlefield 4, and like Dead Rising 3 and Rise Son of Rome, like you can shout things into the microphone, but that's it. So a game, it's weird. It's weird that they pushed it so hard and it never did anything. It's crazy.
Again, if they had like just stubbornly kept making Kinect games every so often, like, I don't know, once every couple months, oh, here's a Kinect exclusive or whatever. It's like, at least you can kind of point to that as the Xbox One is its defining sort of thing. But, you know, they stopped. I mean, I guess that's better overall that they stopped because everyone was like making fun of it. It doesn't work. I remember there's a TMNT game. There was a downloadable TMNT game for one of the CGI movies that was hilarious. But other than that, like, I can't think. And Mike, when I got an Xbox One, the Kinect it came with, that camera, it after 6 months just stopped working, just stopped being recognized. And I just threw it away, and it's so heavy. That's like a Phoenix Wright murder weapon that someone had used to hit somebody. It's so like, why is it so heavy yet still so shitty? So, but at the end of the day, it's like its exclusives, its library is still like solid. There's nothing really wrong with it. Controller is fine. It's not the best Microsoft branded controller. I think the Xbox Series X one or the 360 one is still better because it's got that weird finish. I don't really like it, but yeah, I still use one. I have an Xbox One Lite in my bedroom, and we just use that as our streaming movie, box. Essentially. So I still use one, but like, man, it's also, the OS is also really slow, just like the Wii U. So
I feel like the Xbox One and Wii U kind of like go hand in hand with
Almost.
like the Wii U definitely has the Xbox One beat in terms of like good exclusives, I guess. Like if we're not talking about like, oh, you can play them elsewhere, but even then, like most of the exclusives, no, actually, yeah, most of the exclusives on Xbox One are also on PC, so like that,
Sure,
whatever,
too.
it's pretty much the same thing. But it's just like what the Wii U has in like exclusive games, the Xbox One has in terms of like multiplats. I feel like they both belong very comfortably in C tier.
Yeah.
Do we want to stay in this generation, the 8th generation, or do you want to go a little funky? Because the next one up I see is PlayStation Vita, or we can go like just somewhere else.
Funk it up.
You know?
Funk it up.
N-Gage. What's going on with the N-Gage?
We need Derek from Stop Skeletons from Fight. He like just Skypes in. No, he just like Discords in. All of a sudden he's like, I want to talk about this. I have played this once. It was a display thing like at like a Best Buy or whatever, and I honestly I don't remember anything about it. I remember it not being comfortable, and I didn't even have a cell phone back then, so I didn't really understand like what it did or like what its purpose was back then.
I think this is a D. It
is a D.
You have a fairly compelling library, at least in terms of like IP. You have Sonic, Tomb Raider, Call of Duty,
Tony Hawk,
and Elder Scrolls, an exclusive Elder Scrolls game.
Yeah,
and it's really cool because like Tomb Raider is like a port of Tomb Raider 1, which is like insane, especially at that time, in like 2002, 2003, to be playing like PS1 quality games on the go. But it's also strange because a lot of the games on the N-Gage were kind of like GBA ports too.
A little bit, yeah.
I think Sonic N was Sonic Advance. Super Monkey Ball was on there, but that was just Monkey Ball Jr. from the GBA. Same with like Rayman 3 was on there, but I think that was like the GBA version. So like, I don't know, you were getting kind of like some mixed signals from the N-Gage where it's like, it's console quality games on. It's kind of like how like sometimes the PSP got weird, where it was like sometimes you'll get like a PS2 port on the PSP, and other times you'll get like a port of the DS version or something.
and then you get like a high quality God of War that's exclusive to it.
Yeah. So it's just like all
signals.
different kinds of things going on. Now, that doesn't mean the PSP is in D tier. I'd rate the PSP significantly higher, but the N-Gage was a little weird. Was a little weird boy, but I think it has a compelling library. That doesn't mean it's a great library, and it also has like a lot of problems going on with it.
Battery,
not a great cell phone.
Changing the games.
Yeah. You have to take off the entire back to do that. I think D works for that if you're feeling that.
I think I'd place it maybe in C, except for changing the games in the back is just like so f***ed up. Like what Madman was like, this is a good design, and that brings it down to like D for sure. But because of its library, it's not an F.
Yeah, I'm very comfortable with that. That's the most comfortable I've been like in a while looking at that.
Very cozy.
Yeah. How about let's go a little more retro? How about the original NES? The original Nintendo Entertainment System.
It's actually tough. It's actually tough because at some point there's all this competition, but there's lots of room on a certain column. I can't say that the NES is S. I don't think it is.
It has a lot of problems.
It has problems. Like just generally getting certain games to work. The actual hardware is a little fragile. Like I own one when it wasn't new. I got every console like at least a generation afterwards. Because I was like, I want an NES. My parents are like, here's an Atari 2600. Like, it's not what I said. So and then like it would stagger like that. So I got an NES when the Super Nintendo was going to be out in like a year or something like that. So it's either A or B. I want to say possibly B.
Yeah, I think B makes a lot of sense because, like, yeah, you have some of the, like, this is where most of, like, the biggest gaming franchises of all time have started.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, like you're looking at, like, whatever, this is where Final Fantasy started. Metal Gear here in the West,
yeah,
you know?
in the West.
And all, like, so many of the Nintendo franchises.
Mega Man started,
Yeah, Mega Man, Contra, Castlevania. There was so much stuff on here. At the same time, I mean, like, in terms of nowadays, I feel like it's not as interesting to talk about NES games anymore because, like, what else is there to say about them? We went through, like, that retro boom in, like, early 2010s, late 2000s, where it's, like, it was so cool and fun to talk about, like, NES stuff and, like, recollect it and everything. Nowadays, like, what more is there to genuinely say about any of these games? Like, it is a bit tricky. Not saying that, like, oh, they don't have this amazing legacy and you can't, like, respect them and still really enjoy them. But at the same time, like, it's something where it's like, yeah, like, it's kind of hard to, like, be, like, that excited about the NES anymore.
I agree. It's not the console's fault. It's more like the times.
No, yeah.
But at the same time, it finds itself in this weird spot where we're so done with talking about it. When you go back to games, they're either genre-defining games that did something different, shackled to the limited buttons of the controller, but there's just as many, if not more, games that are like, because of the controller, just let you do like two things, A or B, maybe select on the odd day. There's just as many shit games that are just like,
yeah.
Not only did I have some of the greatest gaming memories on the NES, I had some of those crushing disappointments on the
Yeah.
NES. Like my parents going, here's some money, you can get one game at Toys R Us, and I picked Predator. And because I look at the box, and the box lied to you with screenshots. It had like a screenshot of like the big beefy mode where you have this huge sprite and you put in Predator, and I just watched the Predator on VHS at a sleepover, and I was like, oh my God, let's go. And then you realize that's my first memory of being like, video games can be bad. Video games can be disappointing, but then you have to balance it out with Mario, Zelda, Mega Man, etc. So it's either B or A. I want to say it's like B plus maybe or something like that.
I think that makes sense. I mean, like, there's a bunch. My bad memory was Bayou Billy. That was like the one game at my grandma's house that was in the shoebox that I was like, I don't know about this one, buddy. But I mean, like, I also have like a lot of great memories of playing. Like, hey, Mario 1, Mario 3, Duck Hunt, Excite Bike. But then there's also, like, there's just so much crap on the console. Definitely more than there is good games, but the good games are so, like, iconic and groundbreaking.
So that's why I think, like, balances out to, like, a B.
I think that makes the most sense. That kind of brings up, like, what about its follow-up, the Super Nintendo? I think at the very lowest, A, but I think, obviously with how... like, it feels like to me like when Nintendo or like pretty much any of these game consoles does like this first big, like whatever, like the NES was their first main console, and it kind of feels like it's the practice round.
Exactly.
And then you move over to Super Nintendo, and it's kind of like, okay, they perfected 2D sprite-based games. And then same with like N64, practice round for 3D. GameCube kind of like perfected 3D stuff there. Wii U practice round for HD. Switch, huge success. So yeah, I think Super Nintendo was kind of like, I mean, how many franchises were introduced on Super Nintendo or like during the 16-bit era?
Certainly some strong ones, but you also have to remember some franchises were perfected on the Super Nintendo that already had like their first one, like, Mario World, different than Mario 3, but still just as good, if not better. Like Super Castlevania 4, like a really good entry. Like Mega Man X, not mainline Mega Man, but Mega Man X was like, when I saw Mega Man X the first time, like I saw ads in like comic books, I like lost my shit. I was like, oh my god, Mega Man X, he's like me for real. He's like this cool edgy teen Mega Man now. Oh, like a lot of that was like for my specific time frame of like I was like 13. Like that is the video game time. Like you absorb so much of it, and that's when the Super Nintendo came out, or it was really, really in vogue. I only got mine in '94. I got the Donkey Kong Country set. You were saying like big franchises, what was born there? It's like I want to say not too many, but it was when like things really started to get like the dopest that they could possibly be. Like Final Fantasy 3 was such a massive jump because of course missing Final Fantasies or whatever. But like again, Mega Man, Castlevania, Mario, Zelda. Like can it not be an S?
I think S makes sense.
What is wrong
I'm
with
just
the
trying to
Super
play
Nintendo?
devil's advocate. I'm trying to play devil's advocate of like, okay, because I think the immediate idea is that the Super Nintendo is one of the best consoles of all time. So I'm just trying to think like, that's why I'm saying like at the very least what would kind of put it in that A spot. So that's why I'm kind of like, okay, how many franchises were introduced on the Super Nintendo? Okay. Because I can definitely think of a couple. Obviously you have Star Fox, and then you also have like, I mean, Donkey Kong Country is basically a new franchise. Yeah. The essence of the Super Nintendo is the fact that it is kind of like the NES perfected. Kind of like taking that groundwork and then just like rolling with it. But what is wrong with it? I mean, you still have bad games like the NES does, not nearly to the extent. I would say like if the NES library, what percentage of the NES library would you say is just junk? I'd say it's like 70 to 80%.
I was gonna say like 60, but like I'll go with 70 as well. I'll meet you at 70.
So I'd say the Super Nintendo, probably like maybe like 30% of the games are just kind of like
trash. Yeah,
like just pretty much like what is this? But that means like a good chunk of the library, like at the very least, like is probably baseline. Like this is okay. That's like baseline.
Yeah, but the trash stuff, you have to remember, that's not even like just the Super Nintendo. There'd most likely always be a Genesis version. So it's like shared between the two versus the NES, which was a lot of exclusives. Like sometimes there'd be a Master System version. Yeah. Usually Master System version better because of graphics or sound or whatever. But like when a lot of the trash on Super Nintendo is like not the Super Nintendo's fault. It's exclusives, like rarely... something I'd say like bad.
I'd also say like when a game is bad on NES, like let's even talk about like visuals. Like NES, like you have some bad looking games on there. Super Nintendo, I feel like every game at the very least, like I mean like you have some bad looking games, but I feel like even the worst looking games on Super Nintendo still have like a good quality like look to them. That like, I don't know, that 16-bit style does like hold up fairly well compared to the worst looking games on NES. I think S makes the most sense for Super Nintendo. Like you're saying, like there's not a ton bad you can say, because even then saying like, oh, there's bad games everywhere. Yeah, so exactly. It's like,
I'd say the only thing you can really is like you give it up to the Genesis for a bit. Well, Super Nintendo didn't have the strongest sports titles, I guess. Now, I'm not,
boo-hoo.
Exactly. No, Scott, I agree. But there are people watching that could like sports titles. But I would like sports titles that were arcade ones, NBA Jam, anything that was very arcadey. But it did have a weaker lineup because EA didn't support it as much, or support it with good ports. And you could say that the Genesis has more, if you're into it, more violent games. Like, just aside from Mortal Kombat, there were just like a couple of other games that were just like, yeah, just blood all the time. We don't give a shit.
I mean, you have Splatterhouse, and you know, it was always seen as a more mature one. But at the same time, you know, Mortal Kombat, you know, got its shit together by like Mortal Kombat 2
Exactly.
on Super Nintendo.
And it's like, why
so
would
it's
you care about Mortal Kombat 1 that much when 2 is better and has a little violence? So that's the only that's the only.
And even then,
thing.
like the fighting games are better on Super Nintendo just because the controller came standard with 6 buttons. And on Genesis, you kind of had to make do with, like, you know, the 3-button controller until they eventually, you know, like,
or the activator. You could use the activator.
Yeah, that is true. Ah, damn. Okay, fine. We'll move that down to A. I think S makes sense for Super Nintendo. Super Nintendo was always kind of considered the pinnacle of 2D gaming of the 16-bit generation. You know what? After the N-Gage, I want to talk about the Gizmondo because I feel like that is our next F tier game console. Have you ever held a Gizmondo?
This I have not held. No.
It is fucking disgusting. This thing, like, I'm not even talking about like the quality of the games or anything like that. Like, the Gizmondo is an interesting case where the material they used for like the actual like plastic or the rubber, they used like rubber on the game console or the handheld, and it deteriorates over time. So every Gizmondo is sticky now. It is sticky. You hold it and it sticks to your fingers. So not only is it dog shit to play, but the games itself, like there ain't much. I own most of them. And like it's like there's like 15 or something games, and like at least the N-Gage has like some like pretty like big name stuff. The biggest name on the Gizmondo is like FIFA. It has like FIFA, and that's it. They have sticky balls, which goes with the game console's consistency. I'll give them that.
Fair enough.
But yeah, other than that. Yeah, I'd say it's an F tier. Do you know anything? What do you know about the Gizmondo? Would you say that's a fair assessment to make?
I know that it's called the Gizmondo. I did not know that it melts. But that means every Gizmondo is personalized to you. When you grab one, this one will feel different from another one.
This is my Gizmondo.
Out of the trash, weird handheld-ish games, like this is probably like the most... Like, I wouldn't say, like, offensively bad, but it's probably the one where it's like, people don't even have that much to say. Like, you could talk more about the N-Gage, the R-Zone, or the Gamecom, or whatever. So, yeah, like, that deserves in and of itself the F tier. Like,
the only thing about Gizmondo is the connections to the Mafia that it had. Like, the fact that the Mafia, like, had connections with the company or whatever.
That's
like,
awesome.
There's nothing to that thing. I'm gonna throw it over to you. What console do you wanna place next?
How about the DS, the DS Lite specifically?
All right, the DS has like a great library. It does have kind of the Wii problem where like there's some great games on that thing, but like honestly, the DS, like I'd say like 70 to 80%, much like the NES, that game library is trashed.
Mm-hmm.
But you know, the good games are really good. I would personally put it like B or A. I don't know. What are you thinking about that?
So specifically, I did not get the fat launch DS because I was like, that is ugly. I do not like that, and I will not purchase it. When the DS Lite came around, when it launched, I got it shortly thereafter, and I fucking loved it. I was never that much into handheld gaming before. I can only afford one console at a time, all right? So that was like my first dedicated, like, this is mine. I'd borrow GBAs from friends and so on and so forth. But the DS made such an impression on me, and by that time, I'm on IGN. I'm trying to be informed, not like how I wasn't a child. Oh, Predator, cool, buy that. I would look for the games that I was interested in, and I had a great time with it overall. That's my personal thing. As just like form factor, like how it looks, the colors, like it hit at the right time. Like that was the perfect redesign at the perfect time in the mid 2000s. like that was hitting on all fronts really in terms of hardware appeal and everything. And that's why it's like, what, 100 million consoles sold?
It's like 150.
150.
Like it was like, yeah, it was right up there as one of the best-selling consoles of all time.
Yeah.
And of course, I think, a lot of that has to do with the fact that, you had like 4 different models. So I remember upgrading from DS Lite to DSi. So, I account for 2 of those people that bought the 150 million units sold. And then all the different colors and special editions and all of that. But, that's still, it's one of the best-selling consoles of all time, which always surprised me because I always considered the craze around the Wii to be like, you'd assumed it would have been the other way around, where it's like, the Wii is like the crazy one, like, everybody's talking about the Wii. But no, that hit about 100 million or so. But DS was just a mainstay. Everybody had a DS
at some point. A model,
yeah,
one of the models. I remember when I was doing game testing and back in the day, like of 2007, they had this weird test model DS that was like put together. It was like half white, half black. The bottom part was black, and it was like a special testing unit. I was like, I want that. I mean, you can get that modded or whatever, but I remember I called it like the Panda DS. It was so cute. Anyway, you're not wrong about its library though. It's like 70% like trash shovelware. But it's one of those consoles where I have a lot of fun looking for the really good stuff. You might not like. There's a couple of superhero games on there that you wouldn't think, but are excellent. There's like a Wolverine, the Captain America game. They're like little Metroidvania style games that were made by Kryptonite Software. Like those are like stupidly fun for some reason. Has a really great weird port of Mortal Kombat. Ultimate Mortal Kombat, like
Ultimate Mortal Kombat.
That's such
you get puzzle combat in there.
Exactly. Yeah. So it's got that appeal of like, yeah, there's a lot of trash, and there's obviously some goated games on there too from Nintendo. Obviously, like the Overhead Zeldas, Mario DS line. Although that obviously got a little tiring after a little bit. But I want to say A for me. But if you wanted to put it down to a B, I'd be fine with that.
I think A makes sense. It's mainly like the amount of shovelware on DS kind of clouds over a lot of like the really good stuff you can get on it sometimes, especially like you go to like a game store or something. Most of the stuff you're gonna see is like all the trash, but then like like I don't know, there's so much stuff on the DS that like you can kind of forget about, where like you don't hear many people talk about Ultimate Mortal Kombat on there. There's Resident Evil Deadly Silence on there.
I love that version.
You have Chrono Trigger. I'd say like that is potentially one of the definitive versions of Chrono Trigger.
I'd agree.
Even like weird stuff like Xenosaga 1 and 2, only in Japan, on the DS. Like I didn't even know that was a thing until like recently. I was doing research on like console games that came out on DS, and I'm like, okay, well that's interesting. Like Mario 64
Phoenix
DS.
Wright.
Yeah, Phoenix Wright.
Oh my god.
Yeah, even if that was like GBA back in Japan, like it makes sense on DS just with the touchscreen and everything. Mario 64 DS was insane to me back in the day, just being able to play that on the go, even if like it was compromised in some ways, especially not with an analog stick, but still, like that was incredible. Metroid Prime Hunters on that thing, like just having like slightly console quality stuff on there, like absolutely like insane. And then like the DSi, being able to connect to the shop and being able to download stuff, didn't get to like the extent that I really ever wanted it to. I wanted to be able to do like virtual console, like download like all this handheld stuff, because the Wii Shop channel never had like handheld games or anything. So I thought like the natural progression would be, the DSi, especially that they got rid of the GBA slot. Oh, but that's another thing. The GBA slot, you could do like the cool stuff like Guitar Hero and everything on there.
Yeah, that's the other thing about the GBA slots, because like, now I can, go play through a bunch of GBA games.
Yeah.
And then any weird ones I saw for cheap at like cons or whatever, I'm like, you're coming home with me. Mortal Kombat Tournament Edition.
I think the DS had like a cool balance of like obviously a lot of it appealed to casual stuff. I mean, like, you got, like, the personal trainer stuff, like, personal trainer cooking and personal trainer walking and Brain Age and Big Brain Academy.
My language coach.
Yeah, my stop smoking coach. That's a big one. But at the same time, you have a lot of those core titles. You have a lot of great RPGs on here. You have a lot of great Metroidvanias, the Castlevania games on the DS.
For sure, damn.
You know, I would say A feels very comfortable for the DS.
Okay.
But I mean, like, hey, who knows? It could be convinced to go up to S tier, because what we're talking about here, you know, there's some good stuff on there.
I completely forgot about the Castlevanias, because that's like a huge component, you know.
Maybe what's stopping it from S is the amount of shovelware.
I think that's what it is.
I don't know. I think GBA games, like, visually kind of hold up a little better, like sprite-based stuff on GBA. Like, some stuff looks a little blurry, a little crunchy on DS. Like, I don't know. I'm just trying to make it make sense to me.
Yeah, you could bring up the GBA right now then if you're kind of leading into it, because I do want to say I've been playing a lot of GBA games, like any weird ones I haven't seen. And one overwhelming thing I know about the GBA, like having experienced a lot of its, you know, lowest lows, is that so many third-party games have this same look where they use rendered sprites. Yeah. And it's always isometric, overhead, and it's usually a trash game. So I try to separate that from because not nearly the amount of shovelware that the DS has, but it's kind of almost all of its third-party catalog are like kind of ugly 2D games. Whereas all Nintendo stuff or stuff from Sega or Konami, any ports like that, Capcom, like that's all the great stuff. But there's an overwhelming amount of like really trashy, grimy, like it's just like model of man that has no face and with a gun. Like that's the GBA third party lineup to me. There's some outliers, of course, like Duke Nukem Advance is like, that's the coolest version of Duke Nukem I've ever seen. That's so neat. So there's stuff like that, but again, GBA fat launch, like, I mean, pretty trash in terms of its actual hardware.
You go up to the SP, and that is like fun. One of the greatest one of the biggest deals of a console redesign. Next to like even like the DS Lite, you know, like
I think it was bigger. It was
both
a bigger
of those
jump.
Yeah, oh, for sure, because that was like the first time outside of Game Boy Light in Japan only that like the Game Boy line actually got like. And even then, the Game Boy Light's like backlight is weird, and it's not like as good as like even the original model of the GBA SP, because then you have like the redesign of the redesign with like the better backlight of the GBA SP when like things got really good. But that brings up a question: do you factor in backwards compatibility into like this stuff?
It has to be a small element, and depending on how bad the console is, maybe it could be a bigger element if it's what saves it.
GBA, it's strange, it's hard, especially when like only a few model, like, because then I was gonna say like, okay, well DS Lite has GBA, which is big, but DSi and onward don't have that. GBA, you can play everything Game Boy on that until Game Boy Micro.
Yeah.
So I don't know. Yeah, we can definitely consider it, but I don't know. Yeah. What are you thinking here?
For GBA, I want to say that it's not a C. It's definitely like it can't be a C or lower. So I'd say it's probably a B for me specifically. Even though it's got like a great lineup of games, there's just more games on the DS. Like per se, therefore more Nintendo games, more like, even though that's got a lot of like crap, obviously the DS, I think it's just because it's the wider spread of games will make it for a better library, and you can play the GBA on it, so that's kind of that wishy-washy area. But the GBA SP like is still like such a huge improvement. GBA SP Tribal Edition might be S though. That might be S.
that's an S, especially because like with that ad for it does canonically mean that Mario does also have a tribal tattoo himself.
It
introduces a lot.
There's lore.
It brings a lot of it brings a lot of variables into any kind of fandom discussion of not only the GBA but Mario lore. The thing with the GBA, I love the GBA, but at the same time, it's tricky because so many, a lot of the big heavy hitters on that platform are old games. They're SNES games or they're from other platforms, you know, like It doesn't have its own Mario game. For a while there, the only Zelda game on it was A Link to the Past. And I think Minish Cap came out after the DS released. But, you have the Donkey Kong Countries, all of those are on there. Mario Kart Super Circuit is awesome. Like, was awesome at the time. It doesn't age that well these days, but, at the time, it's like, oh, damn, we get a Mario Kart. But, and you have, like, some really cool stuff. Like, you have, like, Super Street Fighter 2 Turbo Revival
it's
on
a new
there.
version.
But at the same time, it's an older game.
Final Fight 1, it's an old game with some like bells and whistles and some extras, but
all the Final Fantasies, Mega Man and Bass, which is the first time we got it over here. At the same time, older game. Like it and like that's okay because especially at the time, like like that wasn't very common. Like, oh man, this is the first time we can play these games on the go. That's incredible. But it does kind of make the legacy of the handheld a little muddy. Like it's kind of like, oh, like how much of this is its own personality? Whereas the DS, I feel like the DS definitely has its own personality.
Yeah, how much of his own identity versus being a portable SNES? Like, oh, it's a 32-bit console. Is it really though? I don't know. The DS has its identity. The GBA is like, a little, and the GBA didn't last all that much longer before Nintendo was like, oh, no, we're moving to the DS. It was like what, 4 years at most.
It launched in 2001, and then the DS came out in 2004. Now they still had stuff come out for the GBA afterwards. But still, like, it was only 3 years until they were on to the next thing. And, like, Nintendo wanted to make it seem like the DS wasn't the next thing. It was kind of like
the third pillar
side thing.
Right.
The third pillar, but it's just like, like, they always say that.
Anytime,
like, pretty sure.
Every time a company's ever said, like, here, this is going to represent another pillar, it's like, I don't believe you. Like, I remember Quantum Theory, the Tecmo bad Gears of War ripoff. They're like, this will be the third franchise pillar for Tecmo. Ninja Gaiden, Dead or Alive, and Quantum Theory. That didn't work out, did it? Anyway.
So I would say like a low A, maybe a high B for GBA. I love the GBA. Like, I have so many memories on that thing. And the fact that you can play Game Boy and Game Boy Color on that is a big deal. But at the same time, like, I don't know. What are you thinking? I'll leave it up to you for the final decision.
Thing is that I want to place it higher than the NES, but I want to place it lower than the DS. So
well, that's the thing. At that point, maybe DS is actually S.
Just bump it up.
I don't know, because like the more I think, it has its problems, but at the same time, like, it has a huge library. I think it has that perfect balance of, like, you have games for your core audience, but also games for your casual audience as well. I feel like that's something that the Wii kind of struggled with, where I think it had those core games, but it felt a little too, like, whatever. Like, it felt like the casual stuff really did take over the Wii. Whereas even during like the most casual years of Nintendo that generation, the DS, they were still going like, hey, we're putting out Golden Sun on the DS, like I think that was like a big, even though that version wasn't very good, but I don't know, like what are you thinking? Do we move DS up a slot, or do we put GBA in B, or like low A or something like that?
I just as you were talking about it, I was like, you know what, this will balance it out. I think A works because even though it doesn't have as much identity as the DS, its library is still generally littered with less shovelware, less garbage that you wouldn't want to play. So I think it evens out where it's like, they're on the same level, like where its hardware is obviously better on the DS, but its 3D is kind of crunchy. I think A is, they can both sit side by side like brothers.
Yeah. All right. Well, we've been going on Nintendo for a bit here. Maybe we can go
Jaguar.
Yeah, hell yeah. Let's do Jaguar. This is fun. So I have a couple Jaguar games, and weirdly enough, the only Jaguar games I have are in really good condition in the box, like mint. And I'm like, why? Now I feel like I can't really get any just random. I only have to really splurge on some nice looking Jaguar games. But I have Doom, and I got some rare stuff like Atari carts and all that. But like, Atari carts ain't that great.
I have
like, I don't know.
I have all the shitty fighting games. So I have Ultra Vortex, Fight for Life,
Kasumi Ninja? Yeah.
Obviously has to be in the conversation. I think Jaguar has to be D off the bat. I don't think it's F.
No.
It's mostly down due to the controller. Like, I'll maintain that the Jaguar controller is probably the worst one I've ever held. Personally, like, every time, and I know there's a better Pro controller. I have not played with that, but the one that I do have, the standard launch one, like, it is so atrocious. Like there's no way a human being sat down and like modeled that and said this is good. Like, that was, even though this was like 1992, that was AI made for sure. Like,
I'll be a little sweeter to it than you are.
Okay,
I don't think it's the worst controller I've ever held.
What's worse?
I think, like, there's so much on this list, man. Like, like, come on. Even in terms of, like, the keypad stuff from, like, back in the day. Now, I will concede they should have known better by the time the Jaguar came out. Because, like, the keypad stuff from, like, the early 80s, like the Intellivision, that's dog. That's dog. Like, that's bad. ColecoVision, bad. And just, like, Atari 5200, all that's horrible. So, like, yeah, I would say in the grand scheme of things, the Jaguar controller is one of the worst. But, like, I can hold it and it's fine.
All right,
you know, like, you can hold it and, you know, use it as is, whatever. But, like, when you actually have to touch the keypad, yeah, it's dumb.
My feelings might be a bit skewed because I mostly own fighting games on the Jaguar. When I use it, it uses the fucking keypad for some moves. And I can't remember which game it is. One of them does not let you switch the controls at all. One of them does. I can't remember. But yeah, it works fine on Doom, works fine on Wolfenstein. But for anything that's more complicated than that, like a fighting game, yeah, it's dog water for sure. I really lament the fact that the Jaguar had a couple of games coming out towards the end that could have been really cool. Like, oh, we missed out on that cool 2D fighting game. Like, you know, the old Super Nintendo medieval beat 'em up called Legend? You're like these two little barbarians who are just slashing at things.
Yeah, I think I remember seeing that.
They were going to make, that team was going to make a like gorgeous 2D sequel to that, and they were calling it Conan. They thought they were going to get the Conan the Barbarian license, and there's some video of this, and I was like, oh my god, that looks so awesome. Oh, no one wants to, you know, publish a Jaguar game, so we're canceling it now. No one wants to fund it. Boo! Yep. So there's a couple things like that. I think there was going to be a new AVP, Alien vs. Predator game that they're going to, and like that, just, I feel bad for a console that might have had some bangers towards the end, but it just didn't make it out the door. So that's why I give the Jaguar a little like, oh man, you could have had a couple of shining gems potentially by the end of it. Also, Alien vs. Predator on the Jaguar is such a hilariously bad but still really fun, ambitious. Like, whenever I play that, I'm like, this is so bad, but I can't help but love it. So it does have that appeal for me. So it's definitely not an F. It might be, yeah, I might, like, do you think it's better than a D? Like, could you possibly put up that to a C? No,
Hell
it's
no.
not the Wii U, right?
Hell no. I think C tier is like, you know, a C tier when we see, I mean, like, we have the Wii U and Xbox One in there, and like, it's mostly down to like, you can make do with this. Like, if you own this console during that generation, you could get by with that. You would not get by with the Jaguar.
You won't die if you own the Jaguar. You're not gonna thrive though.
No, you're not. You're gonna buy it and you're gonna realize this was a mistake. Like that's what it is. And then F tier is like no redemption kind of thing.
Yeah, no,
you know?
yeah.
So
you need your sins purged if you're an F, and like I don't think the Jaguar like deserves it.
The Jaguar has some good stuff, you know, like
it's got some fun stuff in there.
I believe Doom on Jaguar is the one without sound, but like other than that, it's not the worst. I believe.
Yeah,
right?
no, it's one of the better console ports.
Yeah, it just doesn't have. Well, it has sound. It just doesn't have music.
Yeah.
Which is weird. But yeah, and like Tempest 2000 is kind of the go-to. Like that's the exclusive game that's like pretty okay. But it's still like at the end of the day, it's still pretty much just old Tempest, but like kind of like it's an arcade game at the end of the day. So it's just like it's good, but you know, like you're only gonna play for so much of it. Rayman was designed for the Jaguar,
That's true.
I believe, the first Rayman. So you know, it does have that going for it. But yeah, I mean, overall, the Jaguar is a funny little oddity. I wouldn't recommend it to anybody outside of just purists or just not purists, more so enthusiasts. Yeah. Purists, stay the hell away from this thing. Enthusiasts, go for it. Yeah, I think D makes sense for that.
Okay.
How about let's go with Xbox 360. I think the Xbox 360, I would say overall, the PS3 is better than the Xbox 360 in terms of like, you have, I mean, like, especially near the end. Like, if we're talking like the first half of the generation, 360 definitely wins. But like near the end, and then when you consider overall, I'd say PS3 would be better. But the 360, like, I look at that 360 and I just like, oh man, especially that first model, even though that first model is dog shit, like in terms of like reliability.
But it looks so nice when you saw that console, the white console. You're like, oh, that's a piece of fucking art. And I got a black console. Like, I waited, so I had a good experience with my 360. Not a lot of people can say that they did, but when I saw that, like, I wanted it real bad, but I waited. I was like, I don't know. And well, I also didn't have money, so that was a big factor. But for me, I would put the 360 above the PS3, but because I owned one, I only got a PS3 much later. I got like the original fat launch one that with the PS1 or PS2 backwards compatibility. The only thing about the PS3 is that, like, in terms of what it looks like, even the Slim, I think it's just an horrible looking console. Like, it
always looks a little awkward. Yeah, at the very least, even if you like it, I think you have to admit it always looks a little funny looking.
Even the Slim, I'm like, it looks bad. I don't know, but I mean, that's a minor factor in where a console actually lands. But by the end of the generation, it's like, the PS3 was starting to still get like some banger games. Like
Microsoft started coasting a little bit with the 360.
I'd agree.
Yeah.
The wonderful thing about both those consoles together, it's like, that this generation was over when it's like, here's Gears of War 4, the prequel game, and then it's
Judgment,
but then at the same time, Sony's like, here's God of War 4, the prequel game, and they're both like a step down from the last one.
What even was that
Ascension,
name called? Did it start with an A? Ascension, that was it. I was about to say, like, what? Oh man, like, for some reason my mind blanked and I thought, like, was the subtitle for that one Judgment 2?
That's the one with multiplayer. That's the one with like multiplayer shit, man. Like, that's when you
know, like, they're just. They're throwing shit at the wall at that point. Like, Metroid Prime 2 gets multiplayer as well or something, like, that's when, like, they're not really sure what else to do to really, like, add something to the franchise. They're like, multiplayer. What about God of War needed multiplayer? That makes no sense.
I could kind of see it maybe working, but what they actually did was like, okay, this is weird. Like, I just wanted like a fighting game where you play as all the gods, but I don't think that's what it was. It was like everyone was Kratos. I can't remember now. I would say that the Move is more embarrassing than the Kinect on the 360. The Move was such a blatant, like, we're trying to do this motion control shit. And of course the Kinect was that too, but at least that's more unique and kind of like, okay, I can kind of see where it's like the Move, even if it was technically better in terms of, controlling motion than the Wii, I was still like, when I saw that, I was like, that's so sad that you just made the exact same thing.
The games they put out on the Kinect, like, at least, like, they're more memorable, like, even if it's embarrassing or just dumb and bad. Like, you at least remember Kinect Star Wars. You remember Kinect Sports. You remember Kinect Adventures, all that stuff, or at least, like, visuals of them. Like, name more than 5 PlayStation Move games that weren't, like, ports of Wii games, that were, like, exclusively made for PlayStation Move.
I was going to say Dead Space Extraction, and I was like, oh, wait, no. Then I was going to say Umbrella Chronicles, and I was like, oh, wait, no, that got ported. There are a couple of Namco... There are a couple of Namco railgun shooters that were exclusive to it. Those are kind of neat.
Time Crisis.
Like Time Crisis, Raging Storm, and like Dead Storm Pirates, I think. So there's a couple little neat things there, but like the Move on the PS3 was just... I liked fiddling around with No More Heroes. The PS3 version is like worse. I don't like it. It's buggier. It crashes. But at the same time,
it's interesting.
It's interesting.
It's like, yeah. I mean, I went through a lot of the Move library. just for a future video. And yeah, like there's just so much junk that they put out for the Move that like I don't think anybody really remembers or knows about. Just like the Sony published like Wii minigame ripoffs.
Sony published, really?
Yeah, like there was one called The Shoot, where it's like a railgun shooter that's like going through like different movie sets, but like nobody knows about that one. Then there's like, I don't know, there's like a Carnival Island game or something, like pretty much like a Carnival minigames thing. Just like all this random junk that they put out. And like all this random stuff that like they shoehorned PlayStation Move support in that's just like dumb as hell. There's the Sly Trilogy that has PlayStation Move support, but not for the actual games. Like it's like there's a side minigame mode that's pretty much like just like this cursor-based like mini game that lasts like for 5 minutes, but it has this giant banner on the Sly Trilogy that says PlayStation Move compatible.
Wow.
Like they shoehorn this stuff in. They were in like places that doesn't make any sense. And so I definitely agree with you there.
It was shoehorned into the 360 as well for the Connect for stuff we already talked about, but like you know, it's still the full body motion thing. I was just like, okay, that's its own thing, but at the same time, it's the same thing. And 6-axis, like I generally think the PS3 controller is like the worst of Sony's controllers. I like like not by a whole lot, but it just felt cheaper. It's too light, blah, blah, blah.
You can get by with it, but it was also like, it was the same design they've been using for decades at that point.
And the PS4 one was like so much better, like compared to it. But I've grown to like the PS3 a lot more than I used to. Finding its exclusives or its weird shit. So I think like the only thing I'd really place it overall is just there are a couple of exclusives I liked on the 360, and I generally find the PS3 uglier than most 360 models, but that's, you know, that's not that big of a deal. So
I would say the 360 is way better to use overall. Like when I turn on the PS3, like I kind of shudder a little bit. Now I like the XMB, like the cross media bar. I think it's good, but at the same time, like it is for casual use. I think the PS3 is a bit much sometimes.
I agree.
Especially like when you turn on a game and like, of course, like every game's gonna have an update or something, but like the PS3, when you do an update on the PS3, you feel it. It takes fucking forever. And like it's like it has like 18 different updates. Like you see the progress bar and it goes through them all. The 360, like even with like the newest operating system, like when you turn one on and it's like the Windows 8 looking stuff, it's still like very easy to use. Like it's just like boom, turn it on and then boom. And even when a 360 game has an update, it's like 4 megabytes and it's just boom, done. The PS3, it is just so and especially like when you're capturing footage, like of course this is just a me and you issue of just like whatever, but like they have like the HDCP and you have to use like a weird like HDMI splitter to get past it, and like that's fine, but like it's not fine. It's always doable. It's always doable with the PS3, but it's so damn annoying to use. Like that's why and also the multiplats on 360 are by and large most of the time they're flawless on 360. PS3, it's much more likely they may have issues.
I think it's
like I can think of like Bayonetta specifically. Like that's one that definitely had issues.
I think it took until like the last like year or two where multiplats kind of started to even out a little bit. But for a long time, it was like, you're gonna get frame rate stutters, you're gonna get this or that. And I always found it really interesting that like Capcom did a weird thing where they started to put their fighting games giving PS3 exclusive little bits and bobs, whereas Resident Evil games are getting exclusive bits and bobs on the 360. Like Operation Raccoon City got like this specific piece of DLC that was only on the 360, but then Street Fighter Cross Tekken got like the Sony cats or whatever from...
well, they got like 5-6 exclusive characters on that thing. It's crazy.
Mega Man and they got Bad Box or Mega Man and shit. I forgot about them.
Mega Man, Pac-Man, Cole... Kratos was in Mortal Kombat. I would say that the Sony exclusives near the end of the lifespan, like they pulled out all the stops. They tried to get you over that console so hard.
No one needs to be a Star Wars nerd to answer this question, but were you camp Yoda for 360 or Camp Darth Vader on PS3 for Soul Calibur? Because I know where I am.
I think Yoda's a little more interesting.
That's the correct
answer. I think
answer.
Yoda just just
But then
tiny
they
guy
made
jumping
them,
around.
But then they put them on both consoles later anyway, which is crazy.
Yeah.
Like they were stoking the console wars, but then like also just doused it with water as well. They're like, everyone fight amongst yourselves. Oh wait, now everyone gets them. That's a fun time.
This is why it's so tricky, because I feel like these consoles, as much as I'm like, I think near the end the PS3 kind of got the edge. Because especially, like, I remember 2013, like, PS4 was already announced and everything, but, like, Last of Us came out, and I remember seeing, like, everybody was, like, even so many people were like, I'm buying a PS3 for this, I gotta buy a PS3 for this. And even then, like, after the PS4 release, like Sony still released, like, Gran Turismo 6 on the PS3,
yeah,
and, like, Little Big Planet 3 still released on the PS3 alongside the PS4.
A bunch of cool MotorStorm games, too, if I recall.
Yeah. And the 360 definitely had, like, that first half of the life, like, Microsoft was really pushing to, to get, like, have, like, these genuine exclusives. And a lot of them felt like kind of like the problem with Microsoft exclusives, where a lot of them were kind of like paid stuff. You know, you had Mass Effect was exclusive, BioShock was exclusive. But at the same time, you know, you had Halo 3, which was, like, a defining moment of the 7th gen. And then the introduction of Gears of War, which was, like, that... You know, and like Forza really came into its own. So it's like you had like the two biggest Microsoft franchises next to Halo got introduced during the 360 era. But at the same time, Sony was pumping out like whatever, like God of War 3, Last of Us, Uncharted, the full trilogy, came out there. Resistance, Killzone.
Yeah, I always forget about Resistance, but it's always there.
It's always there. It's always kicking. So, like, I don't know. And then you have all the fun, weird stuff from Sony, like Puppeteer, and just, like, all this stuff. You also have all this junk, like, Lair, Heavenly Sword.
Yeah, the stuff in the first 2 or 3 years was, like, that's the stuff where it's, like, yeah, it's rough. And it's only, like, Uncharted 2, and then, like, it gets better. And, like, it improved over time, whereas almost the 360 was the reverse. Like, the 360 was really strong in, like, the first, like, hardware failures aside. That's the thing, though. You see, like, the PS3 had, you know, the yellow light of death, but not nearly as prevalent. Like, one of the defining memories people have of the 360s is the 360 not working. So, I would be fine, since we're talking about these pretty interchangeably. If these equaled out to on the same tier, I'm like, that makes sense to me. I'm not sure if I could definitively say one's better than the other.
I think they're both at the very least A, because like they're like you look at the library on both of them, and it is like insane. And like when you go over to the next generation, like I feel like always a talking point is like, damn, well, like look at the lineup on this console compared to the 360 and PS3, like, oh, we only got one Mass Effect on PS4. We got the damn trilogy on PS3 and 360. Gears of War, you only get like 2 games on Xbox One. Like, you get the trilogy and then Judgment. You got so many more games, and more frequently, more rapid fire back then, and like they were all pretty good at the very least. So I think A, and especially like all the digital stuff, like that was during the big boom of like digital stuff, Xbox Live Arcade,
tons of it.
Yeah,
like
it is.
You got
insane,
Dreamcast or arcade ports. Like you got like a bunch that are still there that Sega put out one time, and they got pushed forward and backwards compatibility. But like that was a crazy time where it seemed like I was more excited for the digital games than a lot of the box AAA games, because I'm like, a new Hydro Thunder. Yeah, that's so awesome. Or like TMNT, it's really weird, Out of the Shadows.
It's really weird because like it felt like they were more willing to do like the more elaborate stuff, and then a generation later they were more so like, we'll stick to just the easy stuff to emulate, or the easier stuff to emulate. Because like during the 360 era, that's where like the modern port of Resident Evil 4 like was introduced, like Resident Evil 4 HD, like that came out on 360, like Xbox Live Arcade. And then there's like you say, like Hydro Thunder Hurricane. They did a port of Nights into Dreams, Sonic Adventure 1 and 2, Rayman 3 HD. You know, like I'm just thinking of all this stuff, Beyond Good and Evil HD. Like they were putting out like all these like HD ports of last gen games just on like Xbox Live Arcade and PSN. And then when we go into the PS4 and Xbox One generation, it felt like we had to like beg for like the 8-bit Mega Man games, where it's like, oh, thank God we got Mega Man Legacy Collection 1 through 6, the NES games. You know, and that's cool, but it felt like we kind of have to like beg a little more for like, you know, the Saturn Dreamcast era stuff to get remastered. Like they were just kind of pumping that stuff out during the 360 days.
It definitely slowed down. Like there was the one or two odd things, like, or that, you know, got pushed forward with a cross-gen game, like the Dungeons and Dragons like little collection that Capcom put out. I think that was cross-gen on everything. But yeah, it just seemed like except for like HD-ifies or remakes or something like I don't know, Shadow of the Colossus or something on PS4, things like that. It just slowed down. Like it went down to almost a trickle. We occasionally get something, but it was more of like a bigger thing, not like quicker like ports of obscure stuff. It seemed like on the 360 and PS3 you get a lot of that, and just suddenly like blip. No, we decided maybe they didn't sell all that well and they just stopped. I don't know. It
was a very interesting and exciting time, I'd say. Like, it just felt like there was stuff coming out every holiday season. Every month there was, like, a big thing going on. I don't know. Where do you think? I mean, like, I feel like these consoles both have enough issues where maybe A makes sense. But I think they were also, like, this was where, like, gaming started to become, like, really, like this became like a thing for everybody. And of course I think the Wii had a lot to do with it.
Yeah.
But, you know, like everybody had like one at 360 or PS3 after, you know, like let's say like whatever, somebody got introduced to gaming with the Wii. There's a good chance they eventually got a 360 or a PS3. I don't know, where would you put these?
I would put them both at A.
I think that makes a lot of sense. Because, like, yeah, they both do have their issues.
If you asked me in 2009, I'd be like, nah, man, 360, goated for life. PS3, suck it. PS3, Sony ponies. Back then, because I love my 360 so much. And like I said, it never broke down for me, not to disparage those that had to go through hard times with their 360s. But I was like, oh, it's so good. But then slowly in the last, like, 2 years, I was like, no, let me get a PS3 for cheap, and I, you know, discovered its library that way. So I think, you know, them being on equal footing makes sense.
I think I can definitely rapid fire a couple obscure boys. Not necessarily obscure, but just kind of like whatevers. The Sega Game Gear.
That's a whatever for sure.
Yeah, I don't. It's a C or a D for me. Mainly because, like, I don't know, like. Yeah, it was a color handheld back in the day, and I remember I've heard a lot of people that grew up like with it, kind of like a lot of people chose it over the Game Boy, but nobody really has anything to say about it other than that. You know, it's just kind of like, oh, it had a color screen, that's why I chose it.
There's a couple of cute little Sonic spin-offs, that's fine, but when I think about the Game Gear, I think about a bunch of licensed titles, honestly.
A lot of the games are also on Master System, and they're better on Master System. And, you know, and like even playing it these days, it is god awful to play unless you get it like modded. Like that screen does not work well these days at all. You can't see it at all. So like the fact that it has a color screen, it doesn't matter at all these days. Like it's impossible to use. I would put it in D, mainly because like I think it's respectable, but also at the same time, like, I genuinely don't see much reason to play it these days. I don't really feel like it has, like, those defining titles. It's like, well, damn, you got to pick up a Game Gear because there's all these games you can buy. No,
they're not really. I will not fight you on this, so D it is.
In addition, I mean, like, the Master System, because, you know, Game Gear and Master System kind of go hand in hand, I would at least rate the Master System as C. I think it goes below NES.
Yes, it goes below NES because of its library, but a lot of multiplats are better on the Master System, but that's it. Like in terms of like defining iconic exclusives, like there's not, like it doesn't have a Final Fantasy, it doesn't have a Metal Gear, it doesn't have like, a ton of shit. So it does have a Mega Man, so yeah. C makes sense.
Nothing really started on it, like it was kind of like, it just kind of got like the Master System version of whatever, even Sega franchises, like, you have a couple things that start on it, but for the most part, it's kind of like, oh, you don't have a Genesis or you don't have an NES? Here's the Master System version of Double Dragon. Yeah. Here's the Master System version of Sonic, and like that's not this, obviously the Master System had a lovely life in Brazil, and it had a wonderful, long-lasting life, but at the same time, I think it's a C. What do you think of OnLive? Do you remember OnLive, the first cloud streaming? System?
I have the most vaguest memories of talking about this in a video. I've never experienced anything on it. No one ever talks about it. That's it.
I think it's a D.
It
did its job.
That's a safe spot. You can't with any authority say it's an F, and you can't with any authority say it's a C. So yeah, D.
I will say I used OnLive a free trial once in like 2011. I played Saints Row the Third on a laptop with it, and it didn't run the greatest, but I do know people said back in the day that like, oh, it works surprisingly well.
I have heard that.
You had stuff like Batman, the Arkham games on there, and like Saints Row. I think I don't know, probably Darksiders.
That sounds about right.
That's always there. I do own the micro console, and it doesn't work, but like I have held the controller, and the controller is great. It feels wonderful in the hands.
Okay.
But at the same time, it's the same as any of these damn cloud streaming platforms. That's like, it's the same like B tier third party games that are on there that like, okay, cool. But it's like, they're not going to make a difference. It's like how Google Stadia had nothing but like Ubisoft games on it.
Right, yeah.
Where it's like, okay, whatever. It's not an F, but I think it's a D.
Yeah. No.
So that brings us to, let's see, what about the Ouya?
So I played the Ouya one night. Like one night I was over at my friend Liam's house. He had an Ouya. He was all about the Ouya. He's like, fucking Ouya, man, taking over the world. I'm like, okay. So I go.
Why was this the mentality at the time? I have no idea. Like the Ouya's marketing was all about the man. Like let's do it ourselves. And I'm just like, it's just.
It was Kickstarter hype because Kickstarter was so early in its life, and it was like, we're kickstarting a whole console. Like, this is the real revolution, Nintendo. So I think there was a lot of that hype, and you go and you play, and you're like, this is what it is, and like it seems to me like it's the South Park equivalent of the Okama Game Sphere. Where it's just like, here's this crazy weird console over here, and there's a lot of hype, and you actually play, and you're like, what the hell is this? It's just a bunch of weird mobile games or mobile-like looking games, and it wasn't that great, and the controller's not that great, and it just kind of died off. Like, it has an identity for sure. If you say the Ouya, someone will go, oh, right, the Ouya versus, like, like a couple of other things we've talked about. And
I think it has more of an identity than the Game Gear. I will give it that.
Maybe. Yeah,
but at the same time,
it's not good.
No, I put it in F mainly because I don't think any of it makes any sense. I feel like it was $100, and at the time of its release, like, I think that holiday, like, that was when like the next gen was launching, like PS4 and Xbox One.
Yeah.
And I'm pretty sure you could get a 360 for $100, like that holiday. For Black Friday. So, and also, like, okay, the only things that were on here were mobile games and, like, indie games. If you like indie games, you already have a platform where you're playing indie games on. If you like mobile games, you already have a platform you're playing mobile games on. And even then, like, it wasn't everything and it wasn't the best stuff. I don't know who this was for, other than people saying, like, oh, do you want cheap video games? Like, get the Ouya. But it's at that point,
no!
like, It's the same price, or it's not that much more expensive. Just get a 360, and just get like your Xbox Live Arcade games there, or you could just buy a 360 used, definitely for less than $100. So yeah, it made no damn sense. I think like a couple big indie games launched on Ouya. I think like so. Towerfall originated on Ouya. Yeah, so like that's something. But yeah, if you have a case for it, go ahead. But I think it's an F.
I have a 0 case for it. My case for it is that it shouldn't have been a console. It should have been like an online client or something like that, like a service. Like I think a whole console, it was not even really needed. Like. And it should have been really, really marketed towards like super casual people. Like don't market to, hey gamers, do you want a real console that's all grassroots? Like that's not a compelling pitch, especially back then. With a $99 360 with an incredible library and all this backwards compatibility, blah blah blah. So yeah, it's just a bad. It was like a bad timing for it as well. I think it released a couple of years before, a couple of years after, and like made some tweaks. It could have been something, but yeah, F is fine.
What do you think about, where does the Dreamcast lie?
Dreamcast is actually hard because it's gotten harder over the years. Because is it a really small library? Yes. Is it a really good library where there's not much trash? Also,
not a lot of trash on it. That's the problem. And like you can make the argument like, yeah, I don't think there's not really a ton of trash games. I'd say probably like 5 to 10% of the library you could say is bad. Games that don't age well, sure. Like that could be a larger chunk of them. But at the same time, for like what the games were at the time, like the whole thing is like Sonic Adventure doesn't age well for a lot of people. But like what that was at the time was like groundbreaking. That was like, oh my God, like look at this.
Look at this whale.
You look at all the different genres represented on here too. And like it was insane because Sega was doing a lot of it themselves. Like they were pumping out a lot of this and they were trying to make this happen. EA wasn't interested in the Dreamcast. They introduced like the 2K series, which did that evolve into the 2K series we have today? I think they like sold off
something like that
brand, I think.
Something
like that. So like that's pretty instrumental. if that is the case, I could be getting something wrong, but that was like the Sega 2K series, and like those were I mean, just according to Metacritic, because like I didn't play NFL 2K on Dreamcast, but according to Metacritic, it was like the best sport. It was the best sports game out at the time.
But I do remember that as well. Like I remember websites saying like this is the best sports game all year. Like EA's stuff can't compare to this. It's so good because
Which,
Sega.
Like, how many times has that happened where they're like, we can't get the main thing, let's do it ourselves, and it turns out better. Like that. That's instrumental.
Not often.
Yeah.
The thing with the Dreamcast is that, what I said before, it's a small library. It's a good library. If you like a lot of games that are lengthy, that have a lot of depth to them, the Dreamcast might not be for you because it's a lot of fantastic arcade ports. So if you love arcade games, you want to have that feeling, that like late 90s Sega, Capcom sort of thing, like it is the console. But if you like a ton of RPGs, the Dreamcast has a few RPGs, Skies of Arcadia, blah blah blah. But if you want like a lot of lengthy games, a lot of action games that are got a lot to them, the Dreamcast doesn't have a whole ton. But it has its appeal, and it's a nice looking console. Is it loud? Yeah, it's a little loud with its scratchy noises. Is it the best
beep?
Yeah, a little beep. I love the beeps. Does it have the best controller in the world? No, it's kind of up. But was it like lightning in a bottle for a little bit, where everyone was really excited for it for like a year, and then it kind of went away because games stopped coming, third parties stopped supporting of a certain type of publisher, and then just PS2 is here. So like again, a thing of timing, but it still has such an identity. It's probably one of like the most valiant last consoles a publisher's ever made, company's ever made. And like that, I think like is at least a B, if not an A. No, it's a B for me.
Yeah, the Dreamcast isn't perfect, but it feels like it, that's the weird thing where it's like, I don't feel like you can meet somebody that says, I don't like this. Like, I feel like everybody at least notices, like, the effort they put in.
Exactly.
Where, like, you can't say that about the Wii U or Xbox One, even though, like, yeah, they put effort in there, but it's still, like you see the Dreamcast and you feel proud of Sega for doing it, and also really bad for them and sad, and also, like, I don't know, it gives you all these emotions, and you can't ever say you dislike it. You can't say it's bad, because it's a good console. It's always been a good console, but it doesn't have the same stuff that something like the PS2 had, or something like, you can't say it had the library like the 360 or PS3 and A tier.
Even the PlayStation 1, like, PlayStation 1 had, like, 9,000 titles or whatever. Had this stupid huge library, and, like, tons of RPGs and stuff. But, like, if you love arcade games, you love Blue Skies, it's like the Dreamcast is so that. And if you're a collector, if you like, it has a small library. You can find these games easily. If you want to emulate, the Dreamcast has a fantastic emulator that's basically perfect. And it's got a lot of fun stuff to find. But then again, like, its library is really small. Like, I think that equals out to a B for sure, because I'm looking at the 360 and the PS3, and, like, those offer too much compared to the Dreamcast. So
I think it is a B tier. I wish it was higher, because, like, you want it to be there, because, like, I think everybody's proud of the Dreamcast. Everybody's like, damn, you did so well for what you were given,
Yeah.
But at the same time, you have to look at reality and be like, yeah, like, it has some great games, but it's not the same as the PS2. Which at that point, maybe we should talk about the PS2.
Okay.
I feel like, like, I was a little GameCube boy, so, like, and I was a little console wars bastard. I was just like, F this thing.
Yeah, me too, for a little bit.
Yeah, I think I was secretly jealous, because, like, I wanted a lot of the games on the PS2. I wanted DVD playback. I wanted all these features. But yeah, I think you have to look at the PS2, and, like, there are elements of the PS2 that kind of suck. It only has 2 controller ports. Honestly, the video output is not the greatest. Like, it always looks dark. It looks a little, like, it's not as good looking as, like, a GameCube or Xbox game. And also, like, it wasn't as powerful as the GameCube or Xbox. So, like, games will run better or have more stuff on Xbox, or they look a little better on GameCube a lot of the time. But the sheer amount of games and the sheer amount of, like, the most groundbreaking games happened on PS2.
And so many exclusives, like things that Sony stopped making after a while. Some weird things, like I was doing a video recently where I'm talking about Maximo. It's like, that was only on the PS2, Maximo 1 and 2. Jack and Daxter, Rise of the Kasai, Sly Raccoon, like, stuff that are only there, that aside from an HD port or, like, a random thing on the PS3 or whatever, like, a lot of franchises were birthed on the PS2, along with all the incredible third-party support and everything. But everything you said about the negatives, like, yeah, that's all true too. But its library is just, it's hard. I got the one game that made me go, okay, this GameCube shit now. I'm done putting on that mask. I have to pull it off. I need to play Metal Gear Solid 3. Like, that was the one, because I had played Metal Gear Solid 1 on a friend's PlayStation. I had played Metal Gear Solid 2 on the Xbox port at a friend's house. And then I was like, I'm enough of this shit. I need Metal Gear Solid 3. Fortunately, I was, when Twin Snakes came out on the GameCube, I was like, yay, like, that's cool. But that was the one that made me do that. And as soon as I bought that PS2, like, I didn't really go back to my GameCube until, the odd exclusive, the odd Nintendo exclusive. Because while a GameCube game would typically look or perform a little better, there's always other little drawback. Any CGI clips look like crap compared on the GameCube due to the storage space. There'd be less music, less voiceovers for certain things. Like, you'll get a third-party game where you create a character and that character has 2 voices on the GameCube version. On PS2 or Xbox, you'll get like 6, things like that.
Yeah.
So the PS2 is, when I think of that generation, like it's the PS2. Like even though Xbox has a lot of cool stuff about it, the GameCube like has a lot of like cute games that are exclusive to it. Some bangers in Nintendo's history. It's like the PS2 is just, it's got too much. Like it's too iconic of that gen.
I think my thing with it, I remember, have you ever kind of thought of the potential of like, a Desert Island game console? Like what would be a console that like you would be like, that's the only console you need, Oh, you get everything on it. And I kind of thought like, I love the 6th generation. The 6th generation has just like so many good games that I kind of thought like, oh man, if I had a little cottage, just like whatever, I had a little cottage away from the civilization and I had to have a game console there, even though I'm a GameCube boy, I always kind of thought like if I had to pick a game console, I would probably do the PS2. There's too much stuff on it.
There's too much
even
stuff.
like in terms of like whatever, you have game compilations and all that.
Yeah.
Whatever, you have all this stuff. I don't know. So like, and like, it's the best selling console of all time for a reason, and like another reason is like, oh, DVD playback and everything, like, oh, that's why it's like, oh, it's the only console you ever need. I mean, it might be an S, but it does have like more drawbacks than like a Super Nintendo did back when it was a thing.
Yeah, that's true.
So I don't know.
But can you say the PS2's the same as a PS3? That's the part where I get stuck on. I'm like, no, it's better than the like its library is better than the PS3.
Yeah.
And no updates.
I think
like here's anything in the 6th gen.
It just works.
You just
works. Plug it in and it works. I think it makes sense to be like a low S.
A low S.
I wouldn't say it's the best console of all time, but I think it has the makings of it. I think there is a debate to have there. It's one of those things where like I begrudgingly might say like, when people say like, oh, the Switch is the best Nintendo console of all time, I'll begrudgingly be like,
yeah, maybe.
Yeah.
Yeah. I get what you mean.
Because it's just like, you don't want to really admit it, but it's also like, you look at the game library and you see like all the stuff that's come out and you're like, okay.
I bet, because as you go down a certain part of that list, you get to like the 25th like absolute banger Nintendo like exclusive. You're like, yeah, okay, but you still don't feel. I think it's because it's too new still. I think like another.
I think we're also more cynical now.
Yeah, that's true.
We're kind of like, oh well, this sucks and this sucks and this sucks. But then you also have to like go like, it's just like, okay, well, it's just like in 10 years like. Look at this game library, and you compare it to something like the Super Nintendo, which has an amazing game library, but the amount of games on Switch, will like compare to it, you're kind of like, this feels weird to say, but it's also like it might be.
Digital store for the Switch is like the worst though in terms of out of the Wii or the DS, like also, the shovelware on the
also
Switch.
In terms of it running,
it
runs like ass too.
There's no reason for it anymore. At launch, fine. There should have been. Anyway, we'll get to it when we get to it.
So how about Xbox, the original Xbox? I don't know, man. The Xbox has some good stuff on it.
It's the greatest. It's the original Xbox. It's so cool.
I'm just saying, like, it's not the S. It's not S. But
it's not S. No.
I don't know. I'm going between A and B because the original Xbox has some good stuff on it.
It's got weird stuff too. Like it's weird exclusive. Not even the Microsoft. Well, yeah, Microsoft published stuff like Sudeki on the Xbox. Like PS2, you couldn't even imagine how cool Sudeki is, or like Kakudo Chojin, or
couldn't even imagine.
Tao Thing, Blood Wake. Like there's. I will give up that the Xbox has a bunch of like they're almost all like mature rated like edgy fucking games, but that's also like again a big identity that like that was
its identity.
That the Xbox One didn't have.
Mountain Dew colored cases, like it's all about just like that edge.
Doom 3 and like online play, obviously, the PS2 had online play, like couldn't compare to Xbox Live's implementation. Halo obviously 1 and 2. Console's still ugly, still too big. And I got it modded with like a hard drive with like 1,000 arcade games. And the guy that modded it put like a big like demon face that was smoking like a massive blunt on it. Like on the face.
Hell yeah.
Like,
yeah.
That was
Is that a pro or a con? Yeah.
No, that was.
I think that's a pro. Yeah.
I think it's neither because it was like a thing you could get, obviously.
Yeah.
But it's still, not a PS2, so like it has to be B or A. But it has more games than the Dreamcast.
It does, and in many ways, the Xbox is kind of like
online plays better.
The Dreamcast. It is almost like the Dreamcast soul lived on. Yeah, with the Xbox. Because like you had a lot of the Sega games that were being worked on for the Dreamcast, and some of them went to the other consoles too. But like a lot of them, you have Crazy Taxi 3, you have, and like it also got like Phantasy Star Online, even though that was kind of a GameCube thing. Mm-hmm. But you also had like Toe Jam and Earl 3 and just random junk like that. Yeah, so like the Dreamcast kind of lived on with the Xbox. I will say like it does feel like the Xbox. I mean, like you left a big impression with Halo. But that's kind of the only major impression that the Microsoft exclusives left. Because the other ones were kind of just like one and dones. Like, they tried with Blinks.
I think like Fable is kind of there, but...
Oh, yeah. Fable was there. It's kind of easy to forget that Fable was there.
Because Fable's not a thing really now, so it's a little harder.
But I don't know. Like, it felt like it left more of an impression like when it hit the 360 with Fable 2.
Yeah, you're not wrong.
I feel like the Xbox had enough going for it where, like, it's kind of between A and B for me.
Yeah, me too.
I mean, like, these days, like, if I go into an old game store and I see the Xbox section, that section is trash. Like, there's nothing that's really of note there. Like, it's all kind of just, like, the lame shit. But, like, when you dive more into the library, you get a lot of the cool, obscure stuff. But a lot of it is kind of obscure. I would say, like, low A, but I don't know. What are you thinking?
I'm not sure if we can put it on A because it's like, it's not better than the 360. Like, it's just, it's not on the same level as the 360. 360 is, what we said before, that the 360 is the Xbox perfected, except for hardware failures, obviously. Yeah, I'd say actually B.
Yeah, I think B makes sense.
High B.
Yeah, it's something where it left an impression, but I don't think it left as big of an impression as the A consoles did.
Yeah.
Especially, like, sales-wise. And it, like, barely beat out the GameCube. But, I think it did good enough to really get Microsoft started. And it does have that identity. That's the thing. And like, that identity, like, it felt like Microsoft started with that with the 360, and then that kind of just faded away as time went on. But that identity was strong with the original Xbox. Like, even just turning it on, like, it just feels like... It feels like you have entered the gates of hell. And it's just like, it feels badass to own an Xbox.
Yeah.
And, like, ever since then, they've kind of sanitized, like, in general, with any console, like, they kind of sanitize that personality.
Definitely.
Where does the Gamecom go? Because I'm kind of going between D and F. I'm leaning towards F. There's genuinely nothing that you really...
Gamecom.
have to play on it. Yeah. I mean, it turns on quickly, but, like, when you're actually playing the damn thing, like, there's nothing. You're getting nothing out of it.
Yeah, I won't fight you on F.
I mean, like, you have some big names on there, but at least on the N-Gage, like, they're the actual games, or, like, you're playing Tomb Raider on the N-Gage, you can actually say you're playing Tomb Raider. You're playing Resident Evil 2 on the Gamecom, you can't actually say you've played Resident Evil 2.
Mortal Kombat that doesn't have Scorpion or Sub-Zero. Neither. Yeah. Like, that's... There's been a Mortal Kombat without Scorpion, I think, one or two, or maybe I think just one. But like one game with no Ken or Ryu, like it's crazy.
Yeah,
so, yeah, no, F is fine for me.
That brings us to the Vectrex. Have you ever played a Vectrex?
I have seen one running at a convention. I have.
They're kind of cool.
They're kind of cool.
Listen, I like the Vectrex. I have one in my game room in a corner there. And like when it comes to that generation of gaming, the Atari garbage, it's definitely the one I'd play. I'd jump to the first. It's the most unique and it ages the best. Like just turning it on, it has its own screen, and it boots up really quickly, and it has a built-in game Mindstorm. It's pretty much just asteroids, but the vector graphics are cool, and whatever. I'd give it a low C, high D.
Is it comparable to the Wii U? Is what I'm saying.
The Wii U kind of sucks. The Vectrex doesn't have as many problems, I'd say. It
enough.
does what it does.
Okay.
It does what it does.
Okay. If it does what it does and it does what it does perfectly, then you can't say it's D.
Yeah.
All right.
I'd say it's low C.
Oh, man.
But it's just like, yeah, because also it didn't leave much of an impression. Like, I don't really know what you can say the Vectrex did for the gaming industry other than be kind of cute. That's about it.
That's still an identity. That's still valid.
That's something, yeah. The N64. I'd say a B or a C. I'd lean towards B, maybe.
I would say, because I'm also thinking about other stuff coming down the that we're going to look at, I'd say it has to be a B. I'd like to give it an S, but I know that I can't in my heart of hearts. But like I have a lot of, just for me, N64 wrestling and first-person shooters.
Oh, yeah.
Like, you know, obviously rare stuff, but Turok and like a couple of others, like James Bond, The World Is Not Enough is like super underrated. It's not as good as GoldenEye. The single player is better than GoldenEye's single player. There's just more stuff that you're doing. You have more mission variety, whatever. Overall package, though, you know, still kind of GoldenEye, whatever. But N64 was just like literally what it said on the box, the fun machine. I remember having so much multiplayer fun with friends, 4 players on almost any game. Because a lot of them had battle tanks, like super cool game, both of them. There's like a lot, but I can't say that it's A. Games just looked like mud with the resolution. Sound was a problem. Games ran really slow. Like there's too much negative there.
I debate between B and C because the N64 and I have a bit of like a love-hate relationship where it's like I do love it, but it's also like, yeah, the library is very small. I would say honestly, like there's like 30 games on the N64 that are like, these are good and worth playing. The rest of them, who cares, kind of thing, you know?
If Rare did not exist, the N64 would be like a D. Would be like a D almost.
Yeah.
Like
that's the problem.
They saved that system. Even Nintendo's own output wouldn't have been enough. It had to have been both for it to be, you know, higher than like a D or whatever. So they saved that system for all intents and purposes.
Yeah. And even then, even though like whatever, 64-bit, oh, it's more powerful than the PS1, maybe, but like it's like a lot of games like aren't as good as they are on like PS1 or Sega Saturn.
Or there's
like,
always a drawback or something. There's always something that holds it back,
And like it had some of those miracle ports like RE2, where it's like there's no reason why this should be running. But it's like that's the problem. Like it had too many problems that made it so then you barely got any third-party support, any multiplats. Like this is kind of like the console that made third parties wary of working with Nintendo as much.
Oh yeah, when you put it like that, yeah, like that's the one where it's like we don't know if we trust Nintendo 100% anymore with what they're doing. And with the Rare thing, you take one other thing away that doesn't fundamentally change anything, but does, is if you took away those 2 controller ports, that's a trash system. Suddenly, that drops down to a trash system. Not saying anything about the games, like single-player games, Mario, Ocarina of Time, blah, blah, blah.
Oh, yeah.
But you take away that multiplayer element, that invalidates, like, a lot of third-party offerings at the very least. Like, that's rough. Like, GoldenEye got by on its multiplayer, and 4-player, and that, and Perfect Dark, etc. You just take away those 2 controller ports, and, like, that system now... But even then, it almost has a Dreamcast-style appeal to me, where I'm like, I still love this a lot.
Everybody has good memories of the N64, but then when you actually, like, play a lot of that stuff these days, like... You know, like, I respect the hell out of, like, I mean, I loved playing Mario Kart 64. Mm-hmm. I respect the hell out of GoldenEye. And, like, you can still have fun with both of those games. But, like, if you actually, like, sit down and you're not playing with, like, your friends.
Yeah.
And, like, you're just trying to play them as actual games. Like, Mario Kart doesn't age well. And that's weird to say because, like 10 years ago or something, I always thought, like, man, Mario Kart 64 is the pinnacle of Mario Kart.
Yeah, I
play
so
now, and I'm like, I never want to play this ever again. This is awful. GoldenEye, it like you have to respect it, but it's like it obviously doesn't age very well. And that's what you have to say about a lot of the Nintendo 64 games. But a lot of them do age well. The ones that do age well and the ones that you can continue to play, Mario 64, Banjo-Kazooie, Ocarina of Time, Star Fox 64, like it is like holy shit. Like these are wonderful games. These are some of the most groundbreaking games, you know?
But I want to say there's like 20. And that's and then everything else is kind of middling or bad. Mostly bad multiplats, but like still bad. It is similar to the Dreamcast for me. It's like 4 controller ports, you know, obviously games ran better on the Dreamcast and everything. But like it's for me, like I said, wrestling games, like specifically, like I spent so much time playing that because those had offered a lot with character creators and just multiplayer modes and etc. So we have it at B. Like I'm fine with B. I if you wanted to put it at C, I'd probably fight you a little bit, but it's your show. You'd win in the end, but
nah. I think higher highs than the Dreamcast, but the Dreamcast was better, like average
on a base level.
Like, average, base level. Dreamcast was pretty damn good. N64 higher highs, lower lows. I mean, higher highs in the fact that you have like some of the most like groundbreaking titles like Mario 64, Ocarina of Time, that kind of stuff. But it's like low lows. I mean, like. Yeah, like, I'd say like 80% of the game library doesn't matter. That's not to say it's bad. It's just like, who the hell cares about any of these games, you know?
If the Dreamcast had the same amount of titles as the N64, then I'd be like, that'd be a beast of a console.
Yeah, so I think B makes sense there. How about PS4? This is a weird one. I don't know where this goes.
I was looking at the top. Where does that go? Because it's better. It has to be better than the PS3. But is it S?
I don't know, because like this generation was also kind of like, it felt like everybody bought a PS4 not because they wanted a PS4, but because they were so excited that it wasn't as bad as the Xbox One.
Yeah, I was just gonna say.
You know?
Yeah,
like, it doesn't feel like there was any reason to be that excited over it. Other than, like, promises that didn't come to fruition until the last few years.
Exactly.
Like, they announced, like, Kingdom Hearts 3, and it was like, whoa! That didn't happen until, like, 2019. You know? Final Fantasy VII Remake didn't happen until the year the PS5 came out. And, like, half of the time, we were waiting for, like, you know, Spider-Man PS4. We were waiting for God of War, and, like, years went by, and we just kept seeing that game. Kept seeing Last of Us 2. There wasn't much at the beginning, but it wasn't like, oh, man, there's nothing to play on this thing. It was just, like, I feel like the PS3 had more, like, genuine exclusives to really be like, wow, look at that. But the PS4 had more, like, groundbreaking exclusives that were like, this defines the generation, I guess. I don't know. Like, I'm trying to... Or, like, this is, like, a monumental big thing. Like, I don't know. What do you think?
A lot of it, competing and succeeding in business with, like, competitors is, like, you want to wait for the other guy to fuck up. And, like, the PS4 got by, especially in the early years, because Xbox One was just had such bad press, had, like, you know, middling exclusives and whatever. And the PS4 got by on having, I'm not sure if, like, on a technical level, I think it was. Generally, on technical level, most multiplats were better on PS4. Xbox One.
Yeah, it was better than the original Xbox One.
Yeah. But then you think about the first 2 or 3 years of the PS4, it's like, Infamous Second Son, Killzone, Shadows Fall, or whatever.
Order 1886. That was the big one.
I found a guy that worked on that. He's like, I don't want to talk about it. I was like, okay, fine, fair enough.
Yeah, I mean, like, it was just like the main problem with that is that it was like 60% a cutscene, and it was all like 5 hours long.
Yeah.
Like there just wasn't much to it.
But you're...
And like it was like Little Big Planet 3 that didn't do anything. Yeah, I liked Infamous Second Son, but
it's not one of those games, you know.
No, like nobody really talks about it. Honestly, like the PS4, like I feel like people kind of forget, like it's kind of a lot of the same story as like the PS5, and like it took a while to like really get there. But I'd say like 2016, that's when it's just like we got like Uncharted 4, Ratchet and Clank, and like the PSVR. Like that's when it kind of started to get a little more like, okay, like we're getting like more exclusives. All right. And then Horizon Zero Dawn.
Yeah,
and
that's true.
You know, like things started to happen a little more. And then, you know, it kind of like, okay, God of War, Spider-Man. Days Gone for some people, you know. There's some stuff. It was lacking a bit of an identity for a bit there. It just kind of felt like it was the default console.
Even though we've been talking about consoles that are like the perfected version of that, in all metrics, it's a perfected version of the PS3, but like I don't actually know how much. No, it is better. It is better than the PS3. Right? I think
Well, you don't have backwards compatibility. You don't have backwards compatibility. You had to start to pay for online multiplayer.
That's true too.
That was something. The games looked better.
Had a better controller.
And like I would say higher highs. Like I feel like in the 8th generation we had a higher amount of like general big 10 out of 10 games, you know?
Yeah.
But like, I think we had a more consistent string of just good quality games, good to great quality games on the PS3 and 360. That's kind of like comparing those generations. I feel like we got more generally great games more often on those platforms, but we had like bigger, like 10 out of 10 heavy hitters. I don't know.
It's also when it's the same thing as the Switch, where it's like, yeah, it has lots of good games, but you struggle to remember a lot of them just because we're still so close to that time frame. And I think we're still so close to the PS4 and the Xbox One, where it's like, yeah, there are some good games, and you just have less time to think about it than the PS3 or the PS2. Is you just know, like your memory bank is telling you this is what it is. Where it's like the PS4, it's like, yeah, it's good, but what? You know, you struggle.
Listen,
you struggle.
You want to fuck around a little bit? Give it a B. That might be kind of fun. I don't know.
No,
I feel like what we're saying here kind of feels like, I mean, like you get a good library on the PS4, but I feel like I don't know.
The only thing
I'm not trying to be nostalgic because, like, you know, let's be honest. I'm a little baby boy, and like whatever. I was in high school when the PS4 was happening. I was in high school when the Wii U was happening. So like, and if I'm saying I'm nostalgic for the Wii U, I can be nostalgic a little bit for like those early days of the PS4. So I can be nostalgic over that, and I can say that looking back at it, I'm gonna be unbiased, and I'm gonna be like, I feel like the PS3 always had a little more going on. The PS4 was higher quality overall, but like, I just feel like there's more going on.
I think it's like technical specs, how well it runs, how fast it runs, versus like a library started here and like just continued over here. So like, you know, they're both two sides of the same coin, but it's like which one is the toss up? Like, is this a better piece of hardware in terms of what it does? Yes, but I mean, will you go back to a bunch of PS4 games? There's a bunch of PS3 games. It's hard. The only other thing I have to say is that you make another
lot
tier.
Of remasters.
You make like an A. You make an A plus or a B plus tier. That's the only thing I can say.
My God. The PS4, I feel like a lot of that generation was defined by remasters and definitive editions.
I think so too. That's right.
And that's, so it's just like.
And that's not a positive. It's not a negative, but it's kind of nothing almost.
No, it just kind of feels like. I mean, like, you go back to the 360 and PS3 and try to play a lot of the games that released on those platforms, and you kind of, and, like, I can forget a lot of the time that, like, resolution wasn't the greatest, frame rate wasn't great. Like, I try to play, like, the original Uncharted games on the PS3, and, like, every other frame, it's stuttering, you know? Like, it's like, you kind of forget that. And then you play the collection on PS4, and it's like, this is buttery smooth, and this is phenomenal. And it's kind of like a lot of those remasters on PS4 is like how you remember the games on the 360 and PS3. But then you go back and they don't run very good. I think that's substantial. I think that's a good thing. But it does make the PS4 kind of feel like, let's just remaster a lot of these older games. And I like that they did that. but that's what a lot of that generation was.
Yeah, and it doesn't strike you as very memorable, right? Like it's just these are better versions of,
because it's games. Like what was this generation, you know, like what was this generation about? There's some amazing games on it, but I look back at the 360 and PS3, and even if it's a negative thing or a positive thing, that was the era of the brown first person shooter. You know, like that's what that generation was. You know, you look back at the 6th generation, 5th generation, they all had their feel, and I felt like the 8th generation had so much of like, there was a lot of variety, so I'm not going to be like, damn, this sucked. Games were so much better back in the day. But it doesn't have its feel compared to the PS3 and 360.
So I'm looking at the tiers. It can't be a B. It can't be on the same level as the N64 or the NES.
That's true.
So it has to be A.
Yeah.
Like because it can't
I'd
be
say
S.
it's an A minus.
Yeah. All right.
I would say I would rank the PS3 a little higher because I feel like the PS3... and it can still be in the same thing, so this is just my personal opinion, but I would put the PS3 above the PS4 just because I feel like they had more going on, and I feel like it's more commendable looking at what Sony did with that thing. And they turned it around so crazily well, like better than any other console. It had a better comeback story than anything else.
And all of that was due to the Spider-Man font. Don't forget the Spider-Man font. The PS4 does not have the Spider-Man font.
Yeah, that's the only thing. That is the only reason why the PS3 is above the PS4. I was talking out of my ass with everything. Virtual Boy, I'd give a D.
It's neat. It's dumb. Fantastic. That's a D.
Not a lot of bad games on it for what it is.
Trash.
Like, the games are fine.
Love Taro Boxer. That's
and
the one I played.
Wario Land is good.
Yeah.
Jack Brothers is good. Mario Clash is just kind of like whatever, but it's like it's not bad.
Yeah.
All this stuff, you know, it's fine.
The Virtual Boy is like the world is slightly better for it having existed, so you can look back and realize that the past is real. Like, because this thing existed. And it's better than the R-Zone for sure, so it has to be a D.
Yeah, so definitely a little better. How about these old-ass fucking dinosaurs, all right? Intellivision, I'd give a D or an F. I don't care about the Intellivision.
I don't care.
I
care about it less than you, so...
The fact that I'd give it a D just for respect about it being that old and just doing something, I guess.
Yeah.
But like, I never want to play that stupid ass thing. And the fact they thought they could relaunch it with that stupid ass Amico, I'm like, it ain't working, buddy. I don't give a damn. I'm gonna give the Intellivision an F.
Ooh, okay.
Like, because like those games are unplayable these days.
Yeah.
Like, I've tried playing like an Intellivision compilation, and like these games are unplayable. Like, and the controller itself is god awful too. They have that weird disc.
That's the one with the disc. Yes, okay. Yeah, I did play that.
There's nothing like Intellivision does not age well. At least with like Atari, you can plug that in and you can be like, all right, this is simple and like, but you can play it and like whatever. You can get something out of that. So I would say for Atari, like the Atari 2600, I'd give that like a C, just for like what it did.
I think so too, because that's what my parents got for me one time, and I tried my best to like love it. And there were a couple of games where I'm like, oh, I'd love to play that. I'd love to play like Crystal Caves, I think, or the Little Bear.
Crystal Castles or Caverns. I kind of forget now too. Yeah.
Adventure is still like really charming. Whatever. It can't be an F. I think D is also too low for it, so I think C makes sense.
Yeah, well, I agree with that. But when it comes to its successor, the Atari 5200, I'd say that's F. That does nothing. That's like, that is, I mean, not only was it like the controller didn't work, and it's big as shit, and it's also like, it has that weird thing with the power adapter, where the power adapter and the video out are the same cord. That's weird as hell.
Yeah.
But also, it has a horrible game library. It is literally just upgraded Atari 2600 games, and it has no backwards compatibility. It is garbage.
I don't understand why it failed. I don't get it.
Well, that brings us to the Atari 7800, which I would say is a D.
Yeah, it's an improvement at least.
Yeah, it's an improvement over the 5200, and like you can play your 2600 games on it, but by the time it released, like none of this mattered. I have a modded 7800 with AV out, like plugged into like my CRT, like my little retro game center there. I don't use it that much, but like if I want to,
it's there.
I have it. So it's like it's the best way to play 2600 games, I guess. But like, you know, like what? I'm already not playing 2600 games that much. And like 7800 at least has like more of a unique library compared to the 5200.
That's true.
So like, whatever. But I'd give it a D. It came out too late, so whatever. It doesn't matter. How about let's go a little modern? How about the PS5? Now, of course, it's not over yet.
It's not over yet.
It's hard to say, but it might as well be. I don't give a damn about this console. It has some great games, but half of them, like pretty much all of them, I can play elsewhere, or half of them, they're sequels to PS4 games, and they don't really feel like they're doing much different. Like, Spider-Man 2 is a great game, but, like, I'm playing it, and I'm just like, it's kind of more of the same.
It is a better game. It's not a different game.
Yeah.
It does feel like, you know, a lot of it is like, oh, you could have had a big Venom DLC campaign for, you know, Spider-Man PS4, especially the remastered version, obviously. As we go on, we've seen as we get more modern, you know, as maybe kind of like, unless you're Nintendo, but even then Nintendo is a little bit guilty of it, is that things have less and less identity. Things have less and less defining things about in the PS5 and the Xbox Series X for that matter.
Which is weird because the console design has a lot of identity.
It does,
but like nothing else about it does.
That's the interesting thing. Like the PS4 is kind of like drab compared to the PS5 in terms of what the console looks like and everything. But like I have mine sitting right over there. It is so fucking big and it gets so fucking hot. Calm down, chill. Like Christ. And the hard drive that I got that said it worked for it and then it doesn't recognize it. Fuck you. But still, it's still a good console. It still has good games. You can't say that it's, you know, if the PS5 would get a remake or a really, really amazing remaster of Bloodborne, I'd be a lot happy with it because it just refuses to do it.
Yeah, that's just such a funny reason to rate a console lower just because you don't have a Bloodborne remaster. It's just like then the PS4 is the best damn console. I mean, like, yeah,
because Sony remasters everything else on the PS5, but not this. Until Dawn, 2 Lasts of Us, and it's like here's the one thing that people have been like literally screaming at you for every single Sony State of Play. You see the comments, people are just like Bloodborne. Anyway, I can't in good conscience put this anything below a B at this point in time. I want to say B is like erring on the side of positive, and you can move it up in the future, whatever, to A or even higher. I doubt that because I just don't think it's going to get that many games. I think they're already moving on to a PS6. Like I firmly believe that they're just kind of almost done.
Strange.
It's just strange.
Yeah, I think it's the epitome of like I'm not mad, I'm just disappointed. It's like you can see it there, and like there's so much, like there's a lot of cool stuff about it. The controller is good. I love the controller, and like I think the PS4 controller, like you were saying, huge upgrade from the PS3. But as the generation went on, like I just had so many problems with the DualShock 4. Like it just felt like it was kind of like wearing down on me, and like eventually I was kind of like it just felt kind of cheaper as time went on. The DualSense just feels so meaty in my hands. I feel like this is like a tank, but I also feel like it's fragile, like because it's so like white and like whatever, like I don't want to get it dirty, I don't want to get it like broken or anything. But at the same time, like it, like you said, it has good games, it has great games, but it doesn't really, like a lot of these great games are sequels to games we had on PS4, and they just feel very like here's more of the same game that was great on PS4. And there's like some unique experiences, there's exclusives, but I don't know how much of it is like the PS5 or just the fact that like the game industry as a whole,
I was gonna say,
it's just kind of, you know, it's just the state of it. But at the same time, like, you have to judge the console on that too. It's not like the console is a person where you're like, hey, listen, I know it's a tough time for you, so like I'm gonna give you some slack. Like, I know you're not in a great state right now, so like I understand. Like, we can't do that. Like, yeah, the game industry is affecting it, but like, yeah, like that makes the console itself kind of lame.
It also doesn't help that both it and Xbox Series X is like, well, these games will be out on PC, that you're in front of all of the time, and therefore you start to like, I haven't done it too often. There's 1 or 2 games where I'm like, I'll just get the PC version and that then the console just doesn't have that memory associated with it, even though that's like a first party thing or whatever, that just makes the console less memorable, less attractive, has a little less appeal than if I can just play that much more easy and usually at a better, technical performance. So like that's a thing. Like as time goes on, there's less and less exclusives until we just get like a huge blob of a console one day where just everyone's doing stuff on it. But I kind of doubt that. But yeah, the PS5 is. I'm going to say the same thing for the Xbox Series S and X. Even though I use my X quite a bit, but I use it for watching shit. It's like the main console that's in my living room, etc.
Yeah, I would put the Xbox Series X in the same tier, but kind of begrudgingly, because it's just like, it's doing a different thing. I don't think it's fair to, I mean, like, I'm treating them like they're fucking people, but like, I don't think it's fair to treat it like, oh, the Xbox Series X doesn't have any exclusive. Well, like, they're not really going for that. Yeah. It's a Game Pass machine. It's a Game Pass machine, and at that point, that's pretty good. Like, you have all that backwards compatible stuff. You can play all your Xbox One games, and in addition, you have a huge library. Like, you look at the amount of games that they brought over from the 360, and it's pretty damn good. Like, they have a lot of the stuff there. They have a lot of licensed stuff. They have a lot of random stuff. And, like, a good chunk of the best 360 games you can play on Xbox Series X. You can't say that about PS3 on PS5.
Yeah.
You can stream them, but I don't want to do that.
Neither do I.
So, and the fact you can still use the disc and stuff, that's great.
Yeah, you can use a disc and they run better, higher frame rates and all that. Again, that's just a slight edge to the Xbox Series X and stuff, but it's not, like you said, that's what they're going for, and they're not so much banking on exclusives, because all their exclusives are either going to PC or coming to PS5 in like, this weird time frame that we're living in. But at the end of the day, it's like, I will remember the 360 way, or the original Xbox OG, much more than I will in the next 5 to 10 years the Xbox Series X.
I will say, the Xbox One had that backwards compatible stuff, and we rated it lower. So I'm a little kind of like, damn.
So
I don't know.
At the very least, the Series X runs so much faster, just the UI. It's still not perfect, but it just runs so much faster. Resuming games instantly. The Xbox One couldn't even fathom running games like that.
I do use it a lot more than the Xbox One, and I do play a lot of the Xbox One games that I didn't want to play on Xbox One because it was so slow and not fun to use on Xbox Series X. And I just kind of feel like Game Pass was introduced later on in the Xbox One's life, and for a while there, it just kind of felt like they were... Part of me is kind of like, maybe the Xbox One deserves a low B. I don't know. I do like the Xbox Series X at B because it is a good piece of hardware. The exclusives are not there, but they're not really going for that. It's a Game Pass machine. That's what they're going for. And it's kind of like an ultimate, like, hey, I can plug a lot of my Xbox discs in here, and they're going to look really great. They're going to run well. It does well with that. The Xbox One can do that as well, but it's also just like, it's slow. Yeah, it's slow. And at that point, it's kind of just down to, the Xbox Series X has never felt like outdated. Like, it feels like it's at a good quality.
And at least, unlike the Xbox One, the also hardware for the Series X is at least like, look at this dumb little thing. Look at this dumb little fridge. Yeah. Like, at least it looks like a weird thing, whereas the one was just a generic black box. I mean, they're both black boxes at the end of the day, but you get what I'm saying.
So, we can get some of the garbage ones out of the way. Zeebo?
Zeebo is so cool.
I got a Zeebo. It's in the box up on one of my shelves there.
You actually have one. I know a friend from Brazil And I was like, can you get me a Zeebo? It was like 5 years ago. He's like, I can't. I was like, no one has one around here. Sorry, I tried looking.
Listen, old Derek from Stop Skeletons from Fighting, he was always talking about the Zeebo, and I got one years ago, and I was about to message him telling him, like, hey, if you need one, I got one. But he finally got one himself.
He had the hookup.
God bless him.
I think this is such a weird, neat, dumb thing. I couldn't put it at an F. I think the thing that would put it like actually make it bad is because it's so unattainable. Like, it's not emulated. It's expensive, hard to find, blah, blah, blah. But Resident Evil 4, a really good version of Double Dragon. It's a downloadable only console. It's just so fucking weird. That's why
I think it's what the Ouya wanted to be.
Yeah.
It's what the Ouya wanted to be.
It's got a better library than the Ouya.
It does. I think it belongs in D. Okay. So Hyperscan though, that's an F.
Yeah.
It's just it's not worth it. It's a toy. It's pretty much like just designing a console around like an e-reader. And that's all it is.
That's all it is.
So, let's see. The Atari Lynx?
Lynx is actually kind of almost underrated to me, where I'm like, first of all, naming both your handheld and your console over Jungle Cats, yes, please, thank you. More of that, please.
That's pretty badass.
That energy,
more of that.
We need more of that energy. We can't have names like the PS5 and Xbox Series X. Bring back, like, Mustang and Cheetah as names for fucking consoles. And I know that it actually has some like neat little games there. I wouldn't put it F. I think there's something kind of interesting about it personally.
I think there's more going on there than the Game Gear at the very least. Like as in there's more of a unique library than the Game Gear.
Yeah,
the Game Gear, like, there's nothing going on there. Like, it's all on the Master System, and it's all just worse shit that's on the Genesis. But yeah, I think it's still in the same tier, because as much as like the Game Gear library isn't as like unique, like, I don't know, there's not a lot of like stuff on the Lynx that's just like, oh, I recognize that name and I really want to play this game. Like, it's I don't know. Nah. I think it's D.
Okay.
I think it's D. Let's see, Magnavox Odyssey. I think that's like D.
I won't say that's an F. I played one maybe once, and yeah, I don't have much of an opinion on it. But it's like, it is the first, like...
It is.
Console, yeah.
Yeah, it's the first console, so it's doing that, but there's no graphics. It's 2 dots.
It's 2 dots.
So it's like, overlays. Yeah, I think you gotta give it a pity D.
Yeah.
I think you get a pity D.
It's like that one kid that didn't get a prom date. You feel a little bad, so...
Yeah, so I'll give it a D just for that. It's in right next to the Zeebo. Pretty well. The Apple Pippin, I will give an F. That's pretty bad.
You should give
Name an Apple Pippin game. Name an Apple Pippin game.
Name Apple, like... Think about in your head what that even looks like. I think most people would struggle. I think just the name is F.
Yeah.
Like, that sounds like a friend of Peter Pan, you know?
I mainly remember, like, it has a trackball on the controller, and I think most of the games are kind of like just like weird like PC application type stuff.
Yeah.
Like, it's nothing.
Or it's like a Hobbit. Of course, it's a Hobbit. Yeah. I forgot.
Yeah. Pokemon Mini.
Wait, what?
I would give a D. You've never done the Pokemon Mini?
I don't think I've actually done the Pokemon Mini. I've not partaken.
Imagine a Tamagotchi, but with a cartridge slot, and all the games are Pokemon themed, but they're all basically just mini games.
Okay.
None of them are like the actual kind of Pokemon adventures Pokemon fans like. It's like Pokemon Pinball for the Pokemon Mini, Pokemon Tetris for the Pokemon Mini. I wouldn't say any of the games are necessarily god-awful, but they are mini games, and they are pretty much like little LCD games.
Yeah, and the appeal is kind of outside of a collector, the appeal of that's pretty limited. Okay.
Yeah. So
there's the picture of it. Okay, now I've seen that before.
Yeah.
I was trying to look out for it, and I was like, oh, yeah, no, I have seen this before. Not played it, but yeah.
Yeah, so, yeah, I'd say D. Let's move on to, let's see. Oh, God, I'm trying to see. The CDI, what's the CDI doing? I think the 3DO has merit. I don't think the CDI has anything going on. The CDI is like a bunch of educational fucking games, and like Hotel Mario, I think they have like the joy of sex on that console. Like there's just a bunch of like
The
it's
flowers
just a bunch of like
Roger Mapplethorpe.
Roger Mapplethorpe. Yeah, I think the CDI is an F. I don't think the CDI has anything going on. I think you can like give it a pity, like I don't think it was really meant to be like
created
a competitor to. Yeah, I don't think the CDI was meant to be like an actual major game console. I think it was meant to be like a multimedia device,
which is fair.
That like, oh, and you have like games for the kiddos on it, and it was like mostly like educational stuff or just like point and click stuff. And then they tried to do the Nintendo stuff, whatever. I think it's an F. There's nothing going on there.
Yeah, except for its infamy of having those Nintendo. Like if it didn't have that, like we wouldn't like. James Rolfe wouldn't have made a video on it. We just wouldn't have made a video on it without it. Therefore, a whole generation wouldn't have known about it. Therefore, it would be even more obscure. But because of those Nintendo games, like that's why you even have it in this list, really.
Yeah. So I think CDI is F. 3DO has actual games on it. I mean, like you have actual stuff going on there. You also have a lot of horrible stuff, but like I don't know. It's not an F.
Captain Quasar by itself is enough. No, I mean, obviously Road Rash started there. You had better versions on the Saturn and PlayStation and such. You had a very good version of Super Turbo. They're obviously handicapped by its awful controller of only 3 buttons. And of course, you have to factor in how boneheaded of a move, even though there's a very specific reason for it, that you would even fathom putting this at $700. Like,
yeah,
I know that's not the hardware's fault. It's the people above it that said, you're worth this much, and we're going to sell the games and low licensing costs, and it's all going to equal out in the end. It did not, massive failure. But it has games. It has a couple of games to play, so it has to be at least a D.
I'd give it a D. I think giving it a C would be absolutely absurd.
Yeah,
but
yeah.
I think D makes sense. Now, Game Boy and Game Boy Color. This one's a little tricky because Game Boy is iconic. Game Boy, I love Game Boy, but it's something where it's like, where does it go at this point? GBA and DS are at A. Does it go alongside it? I don't really know. I feel like it's more of a B.
I agree because just the games are too limited. Like it gets outdated very quickly by those other consoles, even if they have a similar amount of buttons, or at least the GBA does. A lot of games have aged out way, way, way too fast, but it still has such a charm. It's still such an innovator in the space. Lasted for like 25,000 years somehow. And even though a lot of its games aren't, you can say like, super memorable, aside from like a few from Nintendo, like, it's still like too iconic to put anything. I think B is fine. Like, yeah, putting it alongside the NES, that makes sense to me. Like, looking at what else you have there, that makes sense. It's still weird to be like, the Game Boy is as good as the PS5. But
PS5,
it is what it is.
But it's better than the Vectrex and Wii U, so it does have that going for it. But Game Boy Color, now, a lot of people wouldn't consider this its own system, but, I think it has enough exclusive games to rank it here. And considering that, it doesn't have a large library of, like, Game Boy Color games. It has, like, enough, but it's, like, I don't know. Would you put it right alongside the original Game Boy, or would you rank it, like, a little lower? Because it's kind of a weird thing.
I think it's like most Game Boy Color games that I play, like graphically, I don't find it as nice somehow. Like it has less charm almost than the Game Boy, and how the graphics are rendered, just very flat colors. It just looks kind of odd, but it's still an upgrade. And Game Boy games were compatible, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
So
and in some cases, like Game Boy and Game Boy, there were some games that. Yeah, and there were some games, like, it was like the black Game Boy cartridges that when you plug them into the color, they're full color, like they were cross-compatible on both systems. But at the same time, like, Yeah, like, it doesn't really have, like, I mean, you had, like, Oracle of Seasons and Oracle of Ages. You had Pokemon Crystal for, like, exclusive games or something. And you had, like, a port of Donkey Kong Country. But, like, as its own system, it's kind of a weird thing. As, like, an upgrade to the Game Boy, I mean, like, I don't know. Yeah, I could either put it, like, hand in hand with the Game Boy or a tier lower. What are you feeling?
I think you'd have to put it hand in hand just because it had the compatibility. If it didn't, then it would absolutely be lower.
I think B makes sense for that. We're in the home stretch here. I think we can rapid fire a couple of these funky ones. I think this is a Nuon. Have you ever heard of a Nuon?
What? Yes. No. Yes. No. No.
It's a DVD player that can play 5 games. I think Dr. Dolittle 2 on DVD has Nuon functionality. This is hard to explain. The Nuon is a DVD player that is a game system as well. Like, the PS2 is a game system that's a DVD player as well.
Right.
Just flip that around. That's a Nuon. And it randomly has, like, a couple of sequels to Atari Jaguar games, like Iron Soldier 3 and Tempest 3000. They have Space Invaders XL on it. I think that's an F.
Those are games. Those are games for sure. But yeah,
there are games.
It sounds like a bad idea going the reverse of the PS2.
Yeah. We got the ColecoVision. Sure. I think that's a D. The ColecoVision's kind of cute, but, you know.
I don't know what it is, but the word ColecoVision, I hate this word. Like, there's something about it. I'm like, this is a terrible name.
I don't know. There's something that it sounds a little cozy about it, but,
okay,
you know.
But I think television at least sounds like a like a video game console. ColecoVision sounds like another weird toy thing. I don't know, but whatever.
Yeah.
It's a D for sure. It doesn't have that F aura that all these stinky guys down below have.
No, God, no. Well, where does the Neo Geo Pocket Color and the Wonder Swan go? Because these are two slightly obscure handhelds. I love the Neo Geo Pocket.
I do too.
I feel like you can't put it anywhere above, like, C, though. I mean, like, it's just kind of like, you know, I love it, but, like, let's be honest, if it wasn't for the clicky stick, or if it wasn't for, like, I don't think there's any bad games on it. That's the thing.
No,
but, like,
there's
it's
like
a very limited lineup.
But there's 50 games.
Yeah.
Like, you know.
Yeah.
I think
so. It's like,
I think they'd have to be C's because they just can't be as iconic as the Game Boy line or like the NES. You know, like
it doesn't stand a chance. But it's cool.
It's
a cool thing.
They're very cool. All the art styles they use on a lot of those Neo Geo like Pocket and Wonder Swan, like they're so cute looking. So.
Yeah.
Graphically, it's also better than the Game Boy, but I mean, its library is like 50 games or less, and it's like.
And even though the screen isn't backlit, it's still a good screen. You can still very easily use that thing. I like it quite a bit. But now the Wonder Swan, I have no experience with the Wonder Swan, and I feel like the Wonder Swan is kind of just like it's good for what it is, but it's more so beloved by people because it's just this obscure little thing.
Yeah, and it's not bad or anything, but there's, that's about it.
I could go C or D. I mean, like, I think C makes sense because, like you said, it's not bad.
Yeah, I'd say
but
C.
it's also like I have nothing to go off of with that, really.
Yeah.
That brings us to the original Neo Geo AES. Big boy cartridges. Could have put the Neo Geo CD and whatnot here, but it's also like. It's pretty much the same thing, but just a different format.
But it's worse because every game I played one and
the load
is like it's a large load. You need 6 or 7 guys to hold this load because it's so fucking big. It's ridiculous. Like it's a downgrade for not much of an upgrade, you know. But the Neo Geo is just so cool. When we're talking about like the Xbox, like the marketing for the Neo Geo, where they're like, I don't know, a guy is pissing on a Super Nintendo and a Genesis, and he's like, do you want to play these piss baby games for idiots? Then you can do that. But the Neo Geo is for big dick swingers, and like, you know, like it's always shit like that.
That's what I like. That's
amazing.
what I like to hear.
So many fighting games, obviously, but there's some other like action games. There's some sports games. It's not the biggest.
It's about 90% fighting
It's
games.
90%.
It's about 90% fighting games.
Which is good for me, but at the same time, it's more of a collector's thing. I really wish that update that they did that had an HDMI out, that was that the like kind of
Neo Geo X.
Yeah,
The Neo Geo X
I
Gold.
wish that had been better, because that was a little rough too. But it was just an emulation.
That was more of like a weird plug and play thing.
Yeah, and it just had
Like,
baked in games into it. I don't think you can even expand upon it.
Yeah, I think the Neo Geo it was always more of like a boutique kind of like, this is for somebody who is really
serious,
like who wants the arcade experience at the home. And I don't think they ever really intended it to be like a competitor towards the Super Nintendo and Genesis. It was more so, this is for somebody that wants the arcade experience at the home. This is for like a luxury thing.
High end.
Because it was very expensive. Yeah, and the games were very expensive. And like the fact that it was all fighting games, it was pretty much just for the people that wanted that experience. So for that, I think it succeeded at that. But then again, yeah, it's like, it's a high-end thing. I almost feel like it's unfair to compare it to like a lot of these, because like it's not going for that experience.
Yeah.
I kind of feel like it's either B or C, just because like I'd give it a B just because like it does what it intends to do. But like I feel like C is almost like, C is for those things that like
are flawed.
It didn't succeed, but like yeah, it's flawed, but like it's good for what it is, I guess.
Yeah, when you look
I feel
at
like C makes sense.
But I almost think it's like very similar to the Dreamcast, where it's like it's a low library, it's a lot of arcade games, it's pretty much exclusively.
But like how many games are bad?
Probably very few. So yeah, I'd say B.
I think B makes sense. Because it's just like, again, like it wasn't trying to compete with anything. The Neo Geo Pocket Color, you can argue like, yeah, that was trying to compete with the Game Boy.
Yeah,
and it didn't really do it very well. So it's like, I don't know. I think that makes sense.
Yeah.
Now TurboGrafx 16, that's tricky. I think that is C, because it tried to compete and it did fail. But
it is.
It has some great games on it.
It does have Master System vibes, though, where it's just, this is technically better than the NES in every way, but I mean, and it has some cute games, but it just doesn't have that same level of franchises being born on it and then like thriving on it. So yeah, I'd say C. I wanted one as a kid real bad, though.
I mean, you have some crazy games on it, as like you had Snatcher, and then you also have like Rondo of Blood on there.
Yeah.
But of course, those were Japanese exclusive on TurboGrafx, but it's whatever. There's some good stuff on there. Unfortunately, we have some heavy hitters at the end here.
Yeah.
This is tricky.
I'm too scared. You pick the next one.
Where does the Wii go? The Wii is like the most like. It has some great stuff on it, and it has done some things that's like, it has revolutionized the game industry. Also, it did a lot of harm. It did a lot of harm. It did a lot of harm to the game industry. Not horrible. It didn't like ruin anything.
It recovered.
But yeah, it recovered. But it's just like, a lot of things are really great that it pioneered. I think like, like we have like gyro stuff these days, like with the gyroscope in the controllers.
Yeah.
I think a lot of the use for that is phenomenal. I think gyro aiming is great. Mm-hmm. I think like the very light use Nintendo has in a lot of their games now, and like other games, but Nintendo is like the main one that uses it. It's used in very great ways. It's not nearly as bad as it was back on the Wii. But yeah, like pointer controls on the Wii, fantastic. Yeah, I love that. When you get to the motion control, really hit or miss, but when it really hit with stuff like Wii Sports, it was like magical at that time. But the problem is 90% of the games that use motion control on the Wii used it in the wrong ways. They didn't know what they were doing. Or like like 80% of the games on Wii were just like trying to capture the success of Wii Sports. And it was like one of those things where they didn't know why Wii Sports was successful. So it was just like, sports minigame collection with motion control. There it goes. So filled with trash. But the games that were really good were really damn good on Wii. And there are some great hidden gems on Wii.
Yes.
Like you have Tatsunoko versus Capcom.
Oh, yeah.
Like even like Resident Evil 4 Wii Edition is like my favorite
It's
version
the best
of
version.
the original game.
Yep, absolutely.
It is.
Mad World.
Mad World.
Sin and Punishment 2. Punch Out Wii. Like, those three. Like, the Wii is the greatest console of all time. I'm not going to front. No, everything you said is correct. There's just so many games released that the amount of hidden gems is like also ginormous. Like outside of just Nintendo. But the Nintendo stuff is obviously really good. Mario Galaxy 1 and 2. Like that's better than almost anything on the Wii U. Like the entire Wii U library by itself, those two.
That puts it at least a B, I think. And like the Wii Shop Channel stuff, the Virtual Console was like crazy. Like, Wii U Virtual Console was, like, pretty good, but it's also, like, Wii Virtual Console, it started it, and it was better than on the Wii U. Because, like, they had more stuff. They had, like, Chrono Trigger on the Wii Virtual Console, and, like, the Final Fantasy games, too. And, like, they had just weird stuff. Like, they had Super Star Wars on the Wii Virtual Console. They had the original Ninja Turtles on NES on Virtual, like some weird stuff. Commodore 64 games, Genesis games, Master System
Neo
games.
Geo too, I think.
Neo Geo, yeah. They had TurboGrafx. They had all this. So at the very least, it's above Neo Geo.
Because of the games we've already talked about, like, then there's so much weird third-party stuff that you know, respectable third parties like Soul Calibur Legends is not very good, but I love that it exists. There's Zack and Wiki. There's all this weird shit that was on the Wii and like is still not ported anywhere else. And here's the thing. I will not accept the Wii being put anywhere below A because of Disaster Day of Crisis. I will not have it.
Why do they keep making the Xenoblade shit?
I
because
don't
it's made
know.
by the same developer. They gotta make more Disaster Day of Crisis. That's a weird fucking game right there. Because like
that is the Wii's Deadly Premonition. Like that's what that is.
I like A for Wii. Even though like I think I feel like B makes a lot of sense, but
it does
A
as well.
Just because I think A, low A, I think 360 and PS3 deserve to be higher than it.
They do.
I think the Wii did a lot of stuff, and it was easy to hate on it at the time.
Very easy.
Because like I think like from 2006 to 2008, like they got out a lot of the heavy hitters, but then for like a year and a half, 2 years there, like by 2008, the Wii felt very obsolete. 2006, like it was okay not to be in HD. It was still like, okay, like, you know, hey, this is like on par with like an original Xbox. It looks fine. 360 and PS3 weren't in their groove yet, so like you look back at like an early 360 game and it looks pretty much just like an original Xbox game.
The only thing I would say is that 2010 was like its last good year, where it was like Red Steel 2, Sin and Punishment 2, Donkey Kong Country Returns, Skyward Sword, or Skyward Sword 2011?
Skyward Sword was 2011, but we had Mario Galaxy 2, Kirby's Epic Yarn.
There you go.
Like the Mario All-Stars collection.
Yeah, but after that, like 2011 and 2012, Wii U came out the end of 2012. Like those last 2 years were like dire.
It was
like,
rough.
Except for
it was dry.
Yeah, it was rough. But like 2010 was like the last good year where they're like, okay, there's at least 6 games of like super high quality, like, you know, bangers. After that, it was rough. But it's like, I actually hated my Wii, or not hated, but like was not that impressed when I got it initially. But I want to say after a year, when like Resident Evil 4 Wii, like you said, Umbrella Chronicles 1, I really liked. The Dark Side Chronicles was a little bit of a step back in a few ways, just for aiming and comboing headshots, blah, blah, blah. And like at that point, I was like loving it. Like 2009, 2010, I loved Dead Space Extraction. I was like, this is the greatest Dead Space game ever made. Like ridiculous things. I was shouting nonsense in the sky. Like I loved it so much. But and after 2010, like I was like, okay, yeah, now we're it's rough.
I think the Wii is so interesting because it's kind of that last moment where you got these unique exclusive games. And it was entirely because the Wii had such a large install base, but they couldn't port 360 games to it, really. Like they could try with like Dead Rising, and like the Call of Duty games. But like for the most part, like they would do stuff like Dead Space Extraction. They would do stuff like like you said, the Resident Evil rail shooters, and like that is very interesting. It's really cool to look back and see like how many like exclusive games were on Wii, and even then, like if you try to bring them back, they'll work, but like that control scheme is still like best on Wii because of the pointer stuff. A lot of times, like it's not as good if you bring it over to Switch, because the gyro controls just don't work as well. And like, yeah, it's nice to be able to play with a standard controller, but like the pointer controls on Wii are kind of like that was what the Wii did best, and it made a lot of games like really work so well on it. Some people say like their favorite way to play first-person shooters were with a Wii Remote and nunchuck.
I loved it. Like, I would be like, yeah, you can enjoy your Halo 3. I will play the Conduit. Thank you very much.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, and the Wii had Conduit 2 with, like, the best ending ever.
The greatest ending. Voiced by Duke Nukem as well.
And I really liked GoldenEye on Wii. It was pretty much like a Call of Duty like clone at that point.
But I really liked it.
For what it was. Yeah. It was like, if you're going to reimagine GoldenEye, it's probably, in a modern way, it's probably going to play like Call of Duty.
Yeah.
Like, so it's just like, yeah, it's not the same as the original, but like the original doesn't age that well. So like, you're going to have to do that.
Dude, that level in the club where you have to like go through all these dancing people, but they're just like animated like pictures. Like, that's amazing.
That's the thing. That's why like, I didn't like the game as much when they ported it to 360 and PS3, because you lose that charm. And like GoldenEye on Wii, like, it was made for Wii, so that's why I'm like, damn, this is so fun on Wii, because like it feels like, damn, this is a very great first-person shooter on Wii. On 360, it feels like, it's just kind of like a simpler first-person shooter. I think low A for Wii makes sense, because like it did so much. And like, honestly speaking, I feel like probably B makes maybe more sense, but like I'm happy with A. It's lovely.
You take away a couple of these third-party efforts that I and you have mentioned. Like, I even get into like a Tournament of Legends from Sega, or No More Heroes 1 and 2. Like, there's all these like weird things that if you took out some of those obscure titles, like I want to say a dozen of them, like 12, they're just gone. Then it's like, yeah, that's a B. That's a B for sure. But that 12 is just like so weird, and it's like I think it's the last console where stupid shit was coming out, like proudly B tier games. Like you get a B tier game very, very rarely nowadays. It's either like an indie darling or a AAA, and then there's just garbage, I guess, in between. But those B games, like I think that the Wii was like the last bastion of that coming out, and it's sad, but at the same time, the shovelware it brings it down to that low A, like you said. Yeah,
I feel like a B tier, those B tier games kind of do a lot for the legacy of a console, because when you have nothing but like these AAA games, like it all kind of blends in eventually, and I just feel like I don't know. I look back at the Wii and like. You didn't get like No More Heroes 1 and 2 anywhere else other than PS3, and like that version isn't as good. But you didn't have a Zack and Wiki anywhere else. You didn't have a Mad World anywhere else. You didn't have Conduit or Conduit 2 anywhere else. And I don't know, that's just a little more interesting to me. Yeah. So yeah, absolutely. I think A makes sense. I kind of want to figure out, where does the 3DS go? Cuz that is tricky for me. It's a good handheld, but it doesn't have a lot of third-party support. It has some third-party support, but they're weird compromise versions, or they're strange or something. Like, I don't know, the Metal Gear Solid 3 port is like, why this isn't even very good because of its control scheme. Resident Evil Revelations, but there's a much better console ports of that later on. Yeah. You have to have the weird snap-on Pro Controller thing. Like, there is a lot of up things about the 3DS that the regular DS did not get weighed down by. Like, all the different versions of the 3DS, like, that went fucking overboard. Like, it was too much after a while. Still has good games on it. Still looks way, way, way better than every game on the DS, but
That's just such an odd one. Like, I don't even know where to actually put that at a point. Is that better than the DS? Yes, but also no.
I think the Nintendo first-party support on the 3DS was better than the DS. I think when you look at, like, 2D and 3D Mario, 3D Mario on DS was a compromised Mario 64, which was super impressive, but at the same time, like, 3D Land felt buttery smooth on the 3DS, and that really saved the 3DS too. Like, when that came out, like, the 3DS was not doing very well, and that came out a couple months after a price drop, came out next to Mario Kart 7, all that, that saved the 3DS. So, you know, like, 3D Land, like, nobody really looks at that anymore and goes like, damn, now that was a Mario. It's a pretty generic Mario game at the end of the day, but good. Yeah, and like what it did with like stereoscopic 3D was like unmatched, and I think it's still unmatched to some extent. Like, you know, you don't really have a game that needs 3D as much as that one. You don't really need 3D in that one, but at the same time, like, you know, like, it actually really validated the use of 3D. And, like, even then, 2D Mario, you know, you have New Super Mario Bros. 2, which is kind of like, okay, we were getting sick of it at that point.
That's when I was getting sick of it, for sure.
But you also have Mario Maker for 3DS, which is just a weird bastard. So, you know, you have stuff like that. Zelda, you have A Link Between Worlds and Triforce Heroes. And I think A Link Between Worlds, like, eclipses Phantom Hourglass and Spirit Tracks, like, easily.
It does, but I literally forgot that existed until you brought it up. But it is better and more, you know, it's interesting. But I completely, like you said, Link Between Worlds, and I was like, oh, that release that came out.
Yeah.
Nothing against it, because I owned it, but still.
Yeah, to be fair,
the 3D
it is unfortunate.
Of Majora's Mask and Ocarina of Time, of course. Those are a big deal.
Those are a big deal. And to be fair, yeah, I think A Link Between Worlds kind of has that problem of, like, it is derivative of A Link to the Past, but it also does a lot of unique things. The painting mechanic is, like, really cool. Mm-hmm. The fact that you can go anywhere whenever you want, you can just rent your items and everything. It did a lot of unique things, a lot of interesting things. And then Triforce Heroes is kind of that weird spin-off kind of deal, you know, whatever. That it's kind of neat. And then you have Hyrule Warriors Legends. You got some weird stuff on the 3DS. Oh, yeah. Hyrule Warriors Legends.
I did buy
just some weird stuff. And in terms of Metroid, you have Metroid Samus Returns, Metroid Prime Federation Force,
a banger.
People, yeah. Well, people don't like that. I think at the very least, it's a fine game.
It's a spin-off. It's fine.
Yeah. It came out at the wrong time.
Exactly.
That's its big problem.
If it came out after Samus Returns, a lot more people have been like, yeah, whatever, that's fine, just let it pass, you know, instead of getting the vitriol that it gets nowadays. Still, people still are like, you should do a video about what a shit show Federation Force was. I was like, it wasn't. they made it. It wasn't the right choice. It wasn't the right time. It came out at a bad time. Yeah. That's it.
In terms of other first party stuff, I mean, Smash Brothers on a handheld for the first time.
Sure.
That was a big deal. And third party support I thought was really good. Like, in the first couple of years, you had Street Fighter 4, which was super cool to have that, like, on the 3DS.
And that's one of the most successful versions of Street Fighter 4. I only learned this a couple of years ago. It sold like 1 million copies or some shit. Capcom were like, it kept selling consistently every year. We don't know why. You know, it's crazy.
Yeah. That's wild. But you also had, like, Tekken 3D Prime Edition.
Oh my God.
And, like, Dead or Alive Dimensions. Yeah. You just had a bunch of, like, weird... Like, there was a lot of fighting games at the first year or so of the 3DS, which was strange. But Smash Brothers, that was a big deal. And you had, like, a lot of, like, indie stuff on the eShop. A pretty good virtual console stuff. You had cool Game Boy games, Game Boy Color, NES, SNES for new 3DS only, which was strange. But, yeah, and then, like, Pokemon games and everything. I think first-party support was better. But third-party support, I think that was way better on the DS. But to be fair, you are backwards compatible on the 3DS with the DS.
That's true.
So, you know, I feel like the 3DS is, like, between an A and a B. And I only say B because, like I said, the third-party support just wasn't as there. And I feel like there wasn't as much of a craze surrounding the 3DS as there was the DS.
No.
I love the 3DS, but at the same time, I don't think it's as incredible as the DS was in its time. Like, I feel like the 3DS was a largely skippable handheld.
Yeah, because as neat as the 3D was for a while, like, you know, people eventually started turning it off, and it wasn't strong enough gimmick to build an entire, like a better version of the DS from, or it needed to be like as powerful as the Vita or more, like, you know, given what would happen with all those amazing games that got released on the Vita from Sony and whatever that looked like way better. And the 3D just wasn't, you know, thank God they made it optional. If they didn't make it optional, the 3D, like people would be like, no, I'm not having it. And big shout outs to Shinobi on the 3DS, a really good Shinobi game that I wish got ported somewhere else. Castlevania, though, Mirror of Fate, also big ups to that. I thought that was neat for what it was. Like having a little exclusive chapter on the 3DS and it being more akin to the like search-based Castlevania. Always thought that was neat. But yeah, like you're totally right in that it's better than the DS, but at the same time, it just didn't hit the same way that the DS did. So A or B, I'm fine with either, honestly.
I feel like putting it next to the PS4 and PS3 and 360 doesn't feel like it matches those as much.
Yeah.
I feel like this is tough.
You need like a B+.
Because at the same time, I think B. I think B, just to be fair, you know, I don't want to show my little Nintendo bias. Let's go with PS Vita, you know, the direct competitor to the 3DS. And the Vita is easy to love, but I don't think it deserves anything higher than a B.
It absolutely should be an A, but it's just not. Like there's too many like not even flaws, like just mistakes and again bad timing. Like, because the 3DS was suffering in sales the same way the Vita was as well. It's like mobile gaming just wrecked everything for everyone. We can't have nice things anymore. So handhelds just kind of like take the hit on that. Sony pricing the memory cards at ludicrous. Like, I still no Sony businessman can ever explain to me in any way that makes sense. This is why we did this, because you things up for a lot of reasons. Looks fantastic. Feels great in your hand. Has these.
The hardware is phenomenal. It's incredible.
Solid library, but I couldn't say much more than that on its library. Like it just felt like an extension of the PS4, which is cool, but at the same time, again, it's losing a little bit of identity. Whereas the PSP, I kind of found had way more unique, weirder games or different versions of them, or like little sequels, spin-off like PSP games. The Vita had like a few, like Uncharted, Golden Abyss, and things like that, or, you know, Resistance, Retribution,
Burning Skies, the Firefighter one. I think that's kind of my problem, because I played through a bunch of the Vita stuff like a couple years ago, and like it's a lot of it is like good, but it's like I played through Uncharted Golden Abyss and Killzone Mercenary, and like they're both fine, but it's very skippable. And I feel like Sony's problem is that they kept doing like this thing where the handheld would get the B team effort, and then they're, you know, like, and you look at the 3DS, and the 3DS, like, it's not the B team Mario Kart, it's Mario Kart 7. It's not the B team Animal Crossing, it's the next Animal Crossing, you know? And the Vita just got kind of B team Uncharted that is just like, it's not integral to the story. It's a prequel. You can skip it. Killzone Mercenary is kind of like a best of Killzone collection or whatever. Like, it's just a bunch of like small levels. It looks good. They always play fine, but like, it doesn't matter in the grand scheme of things. And the Vita really shined when it came to indie games and just playing like old stuff, like downloading your PSP games on it, playing PS1 stuff. That's where it shined. And like the JRPG stuff, like the Japanese stuff, was like good. The PSP was way better in terms of its library, but the Vita had much better like hardware.
Yeah,
and obviously it's going to be like, it's going to be technically better, like graphically, but like just from the perspective of like, you have the two sticks, you have like the touchscreen, you have this stuff that like the PSP always felt like from the launch, the games were too big for it. You always had to do like the LR camera stuff, or like hold something down to like whatever. It always felt like the games were compromised all the time on PSP. where the Vita, you didn't have that problem, but the games themselves, you didn't have the games for it, you know?
Yeah,
I
if you were able to like just like port all of the PSP stuff onto the Vita and like, you know, that could have been something, but not really a thing. It absolutely, like I said, should be an A, but it's just like its library. It didn't even last very long. Right? Last what? 4 years maybe?
I think it lasted like 2 years of Sony actually trying with it. And then after that, the fans kind of kept it alive because people kept using it for like indie stuff and just like
importing.
I remember
Japanese
like
games.
Vita fans kept it alive, and like at later E3s, they kind of made a big deal about like, we're bringing this indie game to Vita. Undertale is coming to PS4 and Vita, and like blah 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 blah. You know, they made a big deal about like, hey, we're gonna keep the Vita alive, but like Sony had no like AAA exclusives for it anymore.
Yeah.
With that being said, I think we could probably do Vita and PSP at the same time. So the PSP, I love the PSP. This is such a fun, cool little handheld. But like, I feel like so much of the PSP is like, you get it and it's like, this is awesome. Oh my God. And then you never play anything on it again.
Yeah.
Like, that's at least how I feel a lot of people had things. I have friends that were like, yeah, I got a PSP for Christmas, and I had, like, this game for it and this game. And I played through, and I was like, that's cool. And then I just played my DS after that, you know? Like, I don't know. Like, it feels like the PSP is such a cool novelty.
If you're a Sony fan, you love, like, if you love the PS and love the PS, like, let's say your favorite, that's your brand, like, you're gonna love the PSP. But if you were kind of more casual, it's like, yeah, I'll stick with my DS or whatever it may be. I personally, holding the PSP, I don't like it after a little while because I had to test games on the PSP back in the day. I was testing Def Jam The Takeover, that version, and I had to play the PSP for like 9 hours a day, 5 days a week, and my hand would cramp up so bad. And that would not happen on the Vita. Vita's form factor, obviously superior, but I got real sick of playing the PSP for a while. But yeah, it just has a better library of like, are the games as good looking as a Vita? No. Does it have more games, more unique like spin-off things? Does it have those 2 really good God of War games, which you can play on the Vita, I believe? All this stuff like that, and just the time it was released was just still exciting. Like, and it was a success of a console in terms of units sold. So but I still think that equals out to both of them kind of being the same, almost like on the same tier.
Like, the Vita made up for the PSP's mistakes, but it didn't have as good of a game library, and the PSP had all those mistakes, but it had a good game library.
Yeah, and it had weird
I think
too.
Like, I don't know, like I look at the PSP lineup and it's so funny. I just like looking at like that game library, and like the UMD videos are funny. And just, I don't know, there's a lot to love about the PSP outside of actually like playing it. It feels like it lived up to the promise for the most part. Like, of like, here are console quality games on the go.
Yeah.
It gave you that, but I think like when you actually got that, you're kind of like, I don't really want to play it on this thing. Like, you know, it's like, you know, like, okay, like I do get PS2 quality games on the go, but they are compromised. So I think it makes sense to have the Vita and PSP both in B.
Yeah.
That brings up, where do you think the Switch goes?
Yeah, we were going down the theoretical list of games. It's too much. It's too much of Nintendo getting and with second parties as well, getting some stuff out there. All the ports of the Wii U stuff, better in pretty much every case as well. You know, RPGs, lots of amazing third party ports. Like, you know, as compromised as they are, Doom and Doom Eternal like should not exist. Its problems with performance and stuff, I could not have cared less about that for several years. But now it's getting to the point where I'm like, yeah, just I'm almost afraid the longer the Switch stays around, the worse we'll look back on it. It was so amazing the first couple of years, and now it's still good. Now it's still completely good. And there's like, you know, all these RPG, there's too much good shit. And third parties have supported it, especially indie things. It has to be at least A. But it's not
I think no. And like, I know I say like like, oh, the Switch is the best Nintendo console. I go like, yeah, like yeah, it's a begrudging agree. But that doesn't mean it belongs in S, which is weird to say.
There's too much garbage.
There's too many problems. And like the problems are manageable. Of course, everybody has problems with the Joy-Con. I do think the library is very much port heavy, but at the same time, this is just how the game industry is right now.
Yeah.
I don't really think anybody really wants to do like massive exclusives, and even then, when there is an exclusive, it comes elsewhere a bit later. Like Super Bomberman R, exclusive to Switch, but then it eventually comes to like Xbox and PS4 and everything. And then you also have like Metal Gear Solid Master Collection. May not be as good on Switch, but like, okay, you have all the Metal Gear games. You have all these Final Fantasy games. You have all these Resident Evils. And it's unfortunate because like something like the Wii, you have unique versions of like some of these franchises. You have unique Final Fantasy spin-offs. You have unique Resident Evil spin-offs. But, and it kind of makes you wonder, like, would you rather have, like, just old ports of the same games? Or would you rather have, like, unique spin-offs like you got with, like, the Wii and stuff?
It depends on the game. If I have a choice between Final Fantasy, The Crystal Bearers, or a good port of Final Fantasy 10 or 12, I'll pick 10 or 12. But that doesn't go for every case or every franchise. Like, I'd much rather play, Mad World or over, fucking Mortal Kombat 1 on the Switch. I would just play Mortal Kombat, not Mortal Kombat 1, but Mortal Kombat 11. I'd rather play Mortal Kombat 11 on my, Xbox Series X or PS4, PS5. The problem generally is, again, it comes down to time. Like, we're still too close to it, but it's just been around for so long that, also we didn't even talk about Zeldas, like fucking Zeldas, both Zeldas. Like, it's the crap in the store is so prevalent and it's so predatory, and Nintendo refuses to do anything about it in terms of like, let's have some, I don't know, standards. And they did that
at the beginning, which is weird.
Yeah.
They did that at the beginning of it. They and I think that was just an excuse for like why there was like no games. Yeah. They were like, why aren't there any games? They're like, well, we're only bringing the good stuff over. And then 5 months later, when the Switch when the Switch started taking off, like that policy flew out the window.
It was not a lot of releases. Like, the first year wasn't a whole lot, because every time I go in the store, I'm like, there's nothing here. And now I go in there and I'm just like, there's just mud, literal shit. And you can only go by like top 10, not even top 10 selling games, because that's a lie. Because that's everything that gets put down to 99 cents. So yeah, you have to fight. You have to find the really good stuff there. But Nintendo at least has its strongest foot forward on its first party efforts. I mean, yeah, it's gotta be A for now.
I will tell you what is probably the best Nintendo console ever: the GameCube.
I thought you were gonna say the Sega Saturn.
You know what? Yeah, the Sega Saturn. Give that a B. It's good. It's got some good stuff, but it's very Dreamcast-y.
If I was like, it's an incredible console if you speak Japanese. Because, I mean, I only learned this like a couple of years ago, that like the vast majority of the Saturn's library is untranslated. It's something like it has 800 games in total, but it only has like 100 games that were localized in English, which is an incredible time. When it was released, I was like, the Sega Saturn's the lamest thing ever. Nobody likes it. Everyone hates it. It's garbage, right? And then subsequently over the years, as the internet and information came out, I'm like, holy shit. That game actually looks quite nice. And like, oh, it was a 2D powerhouse. And like, oh, these extra RAM carts make these games better than the PlayStation versions. Oh, and then slowly it stacked up where I was like, you know what? The Saturn's pretty fucking cool. So. Yeah. But not an A, absolutely not. So I think B makes sense.
I think the problem is pretty much in North America, Sega only really advertised like Sonic a lot. Like, they were like, yeah, Sonic,
Blast,
and then and then Sega Saturn came out and there's like no Sonic.
Knights.
So for
Clockwork
North American
Knight.
players, for like North American players, it's a little harder to like know like what's there on Saturn, but there's a lot of good stuff. Knights is good, and you have the Panzer Dragoon games. It's fine.
I'd say
it depends on who you're talking to.
I'd say certain third-party efforts, it's like they're always worse on Saturn. Like anything that was like an FPS is like it had to use some janky fucking engine that they had to cobble together with like matchsticks or whatever. It's only like but that's like more like 3D stuff. All the 2D stuff is like, you know, on par or always better on Saturn. All the fighting games. I love Final Fight Revenge. It's one of the jankiest fighting games ever, but I love that it exists. So it is absolutely, again, a lot like the Dreamcast, where it's like, it's got a small library, especially just for English speakers, but there's some absolute fun stuff there. There's a few unique things there. I mean, one of the best controllers of the 90s, if not ever, in terms of its D-pad. You know, they really learned from their mistake on the Genesis with the 3-button. Like, there's a lot of big improvements that it made. It's just the Saturn was just let down by like marketing and rushing it to market and perception and a little bit of third-party shenanigans, like everyone just kind of throwing they're driving their boat over to Sony and like kind of docking there for a while. But it's still a good console. It's still really 90s, and I love that about it.
It has a weird amount of like actual like third-party support. Like a lot of the big heavy hitter PS1 games also appeared on Saturn. Like Symphony of the Night was on there in Japan, and then you also have Tomb Raider, Resident Evil, Mega Man 8. I think like Mega Man X4 is on there. Rayman. Like there's just a bunch of like stuff that's on the Saturn that you don't really like immediately think about. I think like X-Men versus Street Fighter is on there. And like it had like you said, like good 2D stuff. 3D stuff, like you said, a little janky, but overall, like I think B makes sense, or C. I think B because it's a good console, but like if you're only talking about like the English stuff, you know, it's a little dicey. I don't think it's at the quality
of the Dreamcast. It has to be lower than Dreamcast.
Yeah. So what do you think C makes sense for?
I want to say like a high C maybe, or like the lowest B possible.
I think C makes sense because it isn't the same as the Dreamcast. But that brings up, where does the Genesis go? I think it's an A. I think the Genesis makes sense as an A console.
Big Genesis fans will scoff at the idea that it's below the Super Nintendo, but no, that's the fact. That's the facts. It's below the Super Nintendo. I think in the last 2 years of their life, like the Super Nintendo had got way too many big heavy hitters, like 95, 96. Yeah. Like that was getting, you know, KI, Donkey Kong Country 2, then we get Donkey Kong Country 3, Super Mario World 2, there's Final Fight 3, Mega Man X3, like all those much later, the last 2 years, like it was too strong. Like in the middle, like 92, 93, I'd say they're pretty on par in terms of how good the libraries were getting. And yeah, the Super Nintendo versions would usually look and sound a bit better, but the Genesis versions can certainly run a bit faster, have a little less slowdown. I think up until like 95, they're pretty evenly matched. But the last 2 years, like the Super Nintendo got too fucking good. You
know, you can say it's a pro con that, you know, you have the add-on options. You know, you have the CD, you have the 32X. You can use them if you want to. I don't know why you'd really want to use the 32X. There's not much going on there. Sega CD has some fun little garbage on it. The Genesis was more so made to compete with the NES, and I think it's better than the NES.
Oh, absolutely.
And the Super Nintendo, yeah, it's 100% better than the NES. But then when you go to the SNES, it kind of was struggling a little bit there, and it kind of had to come up with some unique marketing to really push that, oh no, we are better. But I think the library has some titles with some real gumption. But comparing it to the SNES, you know, like you have like, I feel like the Genesis has some really great AA titles, but then the SNES comes in truly with like the AAA stuff.
Of 16-bit, yeah, no, for sure.
Yeah.
The second model Genesis, like the sleeker, like blacker one, not the one with the 16-bit red That Genesis, like that looks so fucking cool. Like back in the day, I was like, I love my Super Nintendo, but I go with my friends who had the Genesis. I was like, oh, but look at that. That's just that looks so slick. And like the Super Nintendo, like even though it's unique, the gray and the purple, I'm like kind of it looked a little dorky compared to that Model 2 Genesis. So I always give up about that. But that's a good way to put it, though. You saying that the Genesis had a bunch of like really interesting, good AA split 16, but like just RPGs alone on the Super Nintendo, it's very.
I mean, Genesis may have had like better sports games, but at the same time, like not to knock sports games, but it's also like like when it's yearly stuff like that, it is kind of like okay, how many like football games in a row really increase the value of your console compared to the multiple dozen plus hour experiences you get on like Super Nintendo with like all the different RPGs, all the platformers Nintendo was putting out, Link to the Past, Super Metroid. I just feel like Super Nintendo is S, but Genesis, I love the Genesis. I grew up with the Genesis, and I feel like it's a very comfortable A. Because like it is Sega at their peak. In terms of like popularity and stuff. I feel like Dreamcast was like them at their like creative peak of like just trying to pump out as much quality stuff as possible, but it didn't really like translate over to like having as
sales.
So I think Genesis belongs at A. I think that makes the most sense. What do you want to do as the penultimate one? PlayStation or GameCube?
Let's do GameCube.
All right. I love the GameCube. But I can admit its faults.
What are its faults?
Much as like
what are its faults,
Mr. Scott? Not great third-party support. It has it, but the most part, the third-party support is kind of licensed kids games, and like you will get like and like I was a kid during the GameCube era, so like I thought like while I was playing, like I was like, what are you talking about? It doesn't have third-party support. I'm like, it has third-party support. I'm playing all this THQ garbage right now. But, and it has stuff. You have Metal Gear Solid Twin Snakes. Resident Evil was exclusive to the GameCube, basically there. And you had Sonic stuff. Yeah, Eternal Darkness. That was great. But overall, third-party support just, it didn't get the third-party games that mattered back then. You didn't have, and like even then, like when it did get third-party games that mattered, like let's say Resident Evil 4, right when that came out, it was already announced to be coming to PS2, and by that point, like it was pretty much over for the GameCube. But like that was like 2005, and like the next generation was upon us. And the third-party games that mattered: GTA, Metal Gear Solid, like the 2 and 3.
Silent Hills too as well. Like, these were getting Xbox ports as well, which is like that's an American console. Like how the are you not supporting the GameCube? When I do videos on what happened, I usually always find a developer quote that says, "Oh, and we decided not to support the GameCube." Like I did a video recently on Dark Watch, like the Western vampire game, and they're like, "We looked at the GameCube for a little bit, but we decided there's not a lot going on there." Like IDOS famously said, "We are not supporting the GameCube" for like 2 years, but then they did. Like Tomb Raider Legend, for example, came out. So I want to say the last 2 years, third parties were like, we're not bothering anymore. Our games are selling too low on it. But occasionally they sold fine. Prince of Persia, Sands of Time sold good. Soul Calibur 2 sold the best on GameCube.
But then Sony got like the exclusivity for Soul Calibur 3, and that was just like, okay.
And they always had the exclusivity on like Tekken, a lot of fighting games. There are no like, fighting games. They're there. I love, like, I will say the GameCube at least should never be eliminated from the earth. Not even for the first party stuff. For me, it's like Bloody Roar Primal Fury is like my fucking favorite version of that. And that's still GameCube exclusive technically. I know there is another kind of version of that on the Xbox, but no, it has to be Primal Fury. So I fucking love it for that. But yeah, aside from some weird FromSoft stuff like Lost Kingdom, there's some weird things there, but it's not as many weird exclusive B games as, say, like the Dreamcast or the Saturn or something like that, or the Wii even. Like, it's just multi-platform stuff up to a certain point, and then Nintendo stuff. And that's kind of it. There's not that many exclusive third-party stuff. There's like a few here and there, but it's not as much as a few other consoles. And at the end of the day, it's like the GameCube, aside from being cozy and cute, like, doesn't do anything. Like,
it's a GameCube. It's a cube for games.
It doesn't.
That's what it is. Yeah.
Like, 4-player support is on the Xbox. Xbox and PS2 at least have some form of online, some form of like real online, not like just Phantasy Star. So at a certain point, I was like losing the faith in my GameCube, where I'm like, there's just not that much going on. The last 2 years, like, third-party titles stopped coming out. And then, like, when you're dealing with Geist, when Geist is the big game you're looking forward to, like, you're and I really tried to be into Geist, but I couldn't do it. So
they had Odama and Chibi Robo. They had stuff. Third-party support was always weird on GameCube because it felt like you get like one game from the series that generation.
Yeah, and that's
like you get like one of them. Yeah, and that would be it. But it's just like it had stuff. Like, it wasn't like how the Wii, like the Wii got like a lot of like exclusive spin-off entries in franchises, but for the most part, like, a lot of the 360 and PS3 franchises just never came over to Wii. Or like Wii U just didn't come over. Like, the GameCube had third-party support, but just not enough or a lot of it. But it had like I know I just said it didn't have enough, but I'm like, okay, it had enough. Like, it had it, like, it was there, but it just wasn't that
good.
It had about 700 games released, which is like, that's enough, I think. Like, it's enough to be a substantial enough game console.
Yeah, how much of it was THQ?
That's the thing. I mean, like, but some of those games were okay. Of course. But
I think it's just certain third-party publishers were just like, they just kept dropping off year after year. So it was a gradual decline versus just not being anything, which is much more easy to remember.
Square Enix once again only had nothing on there. They only had one game, and it was Crystal Chronicles.
Yeah,
that was like the only thing they did. And I don't know. Yeah, you know, Konami didn't do much.
Almost nothing from Capcom. Like, there's one fighting game, Capcom vs. SNK. There's a Mickey game, and there's Gotcha Force. And like that.
Resident Evils.
Oh, yes, of course. I'm sorry. Yeah, of course.
Well, they had the Capcom 5.
That all got ported.
Yeah. Like, a lot of the stuff that, like, you'd think would be like, oh, of course that would come over. Like the Mega Man games, that generation, like X7 and X8. Now, why do you want X7? Crazy. But, like, still.
Just Mega Man Network Transmission. That's crazy to me when I think about that now. Just no ports of those Mega Man X titles. Like, you'd think that would be, like, an easy, like, yeah, kids like Mega Man, why not?
Just a strange thing. But when it comes to the Nintendo first-party things, I love Nintendo's first-party output this generation, but to be honest, it's a little weird. Mario Sunshine as the only Mario game, a little strange. It's a great game. I like Sunshine, but, like, definitely not the best 3D Mario. I love how Mario controls in the game, but, you know, it's definitely not a perfect 3D Mario. Zelda was a bit more controversial this generation. You know, like, Wind Waker is a fantastic game, but at the time, you know, people were a little upset about
it. They're a little miffed.
And then Four Swords Adventures is just strange. And then Twilight Princess finally came out, but that, you know, that also released on Wii. Metroid Prime 1 and 2. Metroid Prime is weird because Prime 1 was like the best-selling Metroid game, and it was like groundbreaking. And then 2 came out, and it's kind of like, okay, you know, whatever. So it's just like didn't really like carry the series into like new places. It kind of just like, you know, Prime 1 happened and it was like big, and then Prime 2 happened and it was like, Like people didn't show up for 2 as much.
I think that was just indicative of like when it came out, it was like 2004, so like things were just slowing down.
Halo 2.
Yeah, that's kind of a big deal.
Halo 2 happened the exact same like weekend or something. Yeah, it came out around the same time.
The GameCube also felt really short as well. It felt like it had a short life, like 2001 to 2006, which is a fine time. That's 5 years, but it felt even shorter. Like it felt like 2005, there was just nothing. I'm sure there was stuff, but it's just almost the same feeling as the Wii, where it kind of petered off in the last couple of years. You know, like the GameCube to me, like, is just slightly less, I don't want to say like iconic, but there's just something where it's like it's just missing a little something to me. Like if it had those weird B games, more weird B games like the Wii did, like I think I'd look upon it like a lot more. And I was a GameCube warrior. I was the fat guy with the GameCube attached to my belt and wearing the wizard shit, you know? Like I was like that for a while until Metal Gear Solid 3 Snake Eater. But like after a while, it's just like, nah, man, like I don't know. I'll wait to see what Nintendo does. And you know, I got all hyped for the Wii, and that gone to its own thing. But it felt like more transitional than anything else. Like it's Nintendo learning we can't compete on the same level. Like our brands don't just work and horsepower on the console. We need to do something more unique than that. And they did. And then they learned from that. And then it's cyclical every time with Nintendo, it seems. And the GameCube just felt like one of those things where it's not bad at all. It's great even. It just felt like another cog in the wheel of their platform console game history, you know?
And we've been talking a little negatively about it, but I feel like
handle
it belongs. Yeah, it does have the handle. In the Game Boy player too. That's pretty good.
To be fair,
purple?
loading, the GameCube will almost always outperform everything in loading games quickly, which is just amazing. I think the Xbox could be on par with it, but loading so much faster than the PS2.
And it has the best controller of that generation. And like potentially one of the best controllers of all time. I love the GameCube controller. That thing is like perfect. Not perfect, but I like it a lot.
I like it a little less than I used to, but it's still great. I think when I got the GameCube, I was like, oh no, this is the best controller of all time. Oh my god, it feels so good.
Yeah.
And now it's like kind of like, I don't know, this is not as good as I remember, but still a great controller. Like when I've seen people say like, oh, it's one of the worst controllers of all time, I was like, please give me the drugs that you have. I would love those drugs.
I think it's mostly on like the mold of the controller is just so comfortable in the hands.
Yeah, I hate that.
Then you have the but then you have the C stick and it's just like a gross little like yellow nipple on it you have to like mess around with.
Flick every so often.
Yeah, and then the D-pad's just small and gross, and it's not the perfect controller, but I love it dearly.
Yeah.
I would love to give it A, but I think in the grand scheme of consoles, it might make sense as like a high B.
I think a high B, yeah. Not a low B, but high B makes sense to me.
Well, that brings us to the PS1. And I don't know where this one will go other than like, I feel like there's a case for S.
F.
But I don't really, I don't really want to put it in S. That's just kind of dumb. I don't know. I feel like it makes sense as like an A, but I don't know. What do you think?
The PlayStation 1 is absolutely an S in terms of legitimizing video games as like these aren't toys or like a thing that kids do. Like it did so much for pushing the industry a little bit outside the norm and being like, you know, like these kids are growing up like that. It was like a revolution in and of itself because of that. Like Sega was doing that like a few years ago, but this was like the biggest, bestest version you could have done. And you go back to PlayStation 1 games, aside from the absolute classics, and it's like, they look really... PlayStation and N64 games look very terrible for completely different reasons. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, they both have their flaws.
It's not a good-looking generation.
It's not. And the early days of the console are, like, rough. Like, when games that we don't even understand how to move things in 3D right yet. You found those weird 2D, 2.5D games, and some of them are rough. There's also a lot of garbage on the PlayStation 1. There's a lot of, like, you know, shovelware in of itself. But just, everything else, the Metal Gears, the Final Fantasies, the Tekkens, the Street Fighters, like all of the third-party support. Legend of Dragoon is always slept on. Play Legend of Dragoon, everybody. There's, again, it's much like the PS2 where there's just too much. There's too many games available on it. And it's so iconic of the late to mid 90s. Like, it did feel like video games were reaching like a new level of 3D that were, until the N64 kind of said, hey, how about these like newfangled analog stickies? How about them? Like, it was the center of the video game industry for like at least the first 2 years. And then it's like, oh, well, what can the N64 do? Not much, as it turns out, in terms of mainstream appeal. And the PlayStation goes on to sell what? Another 100 million? I think it's like second, third highest selling thing ever.
I definitely agree with you where, like, yeah, before the PS1, gaming was seen as like a toy. But like even then, like you go to the PS1 and like whatever, Medal of Honor appeared on the PS1, and that was like, this is produced by Steven Spielberg. And like this is, yeah, like there's just like it definitely legitimized a lot for the game industry. The problem with I don't like going back to the PS1. I don't think the games age as well as like
absolutely
other places. Right. And even then, even when like games are still like, oh, this is really good, like I don't think PlayStation games are nearly as timeless as something like some of the best NES games. Some of the best PS1 games I don't think are as timeless to go back to as like the best NES games. Even though like, yeah, you can say more about the PS1 games. You can go back to Final Fantasy VII and be like this is one of the best games of all time. This is one of the most groundbreaking games of all time. But I feel like you're always going to be able to go back to like whatever like Mario 3 way more. And of course that's probably due to like the genre, but it's also like I don't know. I feel like the PS1 just doesn't age very well, but like the game library is like crazy on that thing. I feel like it's definitely an A. I feel like S, it's kind of like that thing where it's like this is the practice round, and then PS2 comes in, and is like, there you go.
Like this has to be below PS2 for sure, just because it disrupted the market so much. Like of the two, disrupted it even more by saying like, hey, look at this, look at these Resident Evil games. Like it's really when console gaming was like, we can offer a bit more than the arcade. The Tekken, there's no reason to play Tekken 3 in the arcade when Tekken 3 exists on the PlayStation because it has this much more stuff. And that's when it was starting to happen. Like Resident Evil and Metal Gear, that like 1-2 punch of like, here are more cinematic, like movie-esque like games that place you in a scenario. There's full voice acting, blah, 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 all this stuff. Like, yeah, really like game changing. But when you do go back to these, I would rather go back to the remakes of Resident Evil 1 or 2 versus like playing the old school ones like in their original form. Just because they're like, better looking versions, especially like Resident Evil 1 on the GameCube. Like I'd rather play that than Resident Evil 1 on the PlayStation because it looks and sounds really rough, charming as it is.
Well, even though you started with the PlayStation controller without the thumbsticks.
That's
and like,
true too. I always forget about that.
You had to introduce the DualShock, and it's just like, what are we doing here?
I was also really...
I think it's weird when you look back at the PlayStation controller before the DualShock. Mm-hmm. Like, I didn't even know that was a thing when I was a kid, and like that just looked wrong. That looked wrong.
Yeah. My friend that had a PlayStation, we would play Bloody Roar and Toshinden on it, and he would, like, I remember now, he'd hold that controller, and I think even then, because I think while we're doing this, the N64 was out, so it's like, shouldn't you have one of those analog sticks? Like, no, man, this is what the controller looks like, and I'm like, okay. And he also always had to put his PlayStation, like, literally on its side or upside down, put a pillow and brace it, because it's the only way it would read discs, but... yeah, like as a kid, I was jealous of the PlayStation growing up because I was still so into fighting games, especially 2D ones, and the N64 had like almost zero. Mortal Kombat Trilogy, that's basically it, and 3D fighters, of course. So at the time, I was really, really jealous of it. I look at it, and like the gray standard PlayStation is like super ugly. Like I look at it, I'm like, I hate this thing. It just, I don't know.
Yeah.
If it came in black or white, gray is just, and not even like a nice gray accented with purple like the Super Nintendo. It just looks kind of like, even though it's supposed to look like a futuristic DVD or like VHS player, like it still looks kind of toyish to me, weirdly enough. But yeah, it has to be an A.
I personally think it all makes sense. See, we have SNES and PS2 and S, 360, PS3, a lot of the PlayStations in A. You got 360, PS3, DS, Game Boy Advance, PS4, Wii, PS1, Switch, and Genesis in A. Which I think makes sense. These are all like consoles that can be like, I think they all have like some big flaws about them. Not big, but just like things keeping them from like perfection. And that can still be said about the PS2, but the game library is so vast. And it also has PS1 backwards compatibility. You have DVD playback, all that stuff. Where I feel like the PS2 downsides are a little like, whatever.
They're minimal,
oh, yeah. And then in B tier, original Xbox, NES, Dreamcast, N64, PS5, Series X, Game Boy, Game Boy Color, Neo Geo, GameCube, 3DS, PSP, and PS Vita. Deeply flawed, but great systems. And then C tier is Wii U, Xbox One, Sega Master System, Vectrex, Atari 2600, Neo Geo Pocket and Pocket Color, Bandai Wonder Swan, TurboGrafx 16, and Sega Saturn. Deeply flawed systems that are okay. Deeply. And then D, Atari 7800, N-Gage, Atari Jaguar, Game Gear, OnLive, Virtual Boy, Zeebo, Atari Lynx, Magnavox Odyssey, Pokemon Mini, 3DO, and ColecoVision. Not good systems, but they could be a lot worse. You made a mistake buying them, but you're not going to be
You won't die.
Absolutely out of luck. Yeah, you won't. And then F is Intellivision, Atari 5200, R-Zone, Gizmondo, OnLive, oh God. Well, not OnLive,
yeah,
Ouya. That's Ouya. Gamecom, R-Zone, Pippin, Nuon, and CDI.
There's so many
Jesus Christ.
There's so many unhinged bits where you're like, PlayStation, blah, blah, Pippin. It's all stuff. It makes you gag.
Oh my God. I think it makes sense. I think this list makes a lot of sense. And I love the fucking GameCube, and it's in B.
The logic is sound. It can't be disputed. So Tiger LCD Games next, right?